You practice immortality. I cultivate the land. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, Sword Washing Pond. Qianlong Lake. The shuttle-shaped flying boat flew quickly among the mountains, rivers, lakes and marshes. Every time it passed a place, the Qianjian sect monks introduced it enthusiastically to Lu Xuan and others. The Qianjian sect is not inferior to other sects in any aspect, and it is outstanding in swordsmanship, standing out from the crowd, and is more than one level stronger than other sects. That is the sword washing pool, which contains infinite sword energy. After the flying sword magic weapon is placed in it, it can condense the sword intent and remove a small amount of impurities in the flying sword, making it more pure. When forging swords, adding a small amount of water from the sword washing pool can slightly increase the success rate of forging. The Qianjian sect monk with a handsome appearance and temperament pointed to a pool below and said. Lu Xuan looked over and saw the sword light sparkling in the pool, rippling with the waves, and the sharp sword intent could be felt in the sky. This is Luojian Peak, where there are many flying swords left by the deceased predecessors of Qianjian sect, including many high-grade swords with great spirituality. If you, the junior brothers and sisters, are blessed with great fortune and are proficient in swordsmanship, you may be able to go to Luojian Peak to try your luck. Who knows, you may get a rare sword. The Qianjian sect cultivator pointed to a high peak passing by and said. The huge mountain was hundreds of feet high, and the sound of swords like dragon roars and tiger roars could be heard from time to time. This is Daojianlu, built with high quality bluestone. Even giant and cultivators cannot easily cause great damage here. It is a good place for fellow disciples to exchange sword skills and magic. Daojianlu was covered in clouds and mist, with only a few of its claws exposed, which was extremely mysterious. Senior brother, may I ask if there is any special place in the sect to grow spiritual plants and cultivate spiritual beasts? Lu Xuan asked curiously. Of course there are. There are several elders in the sect who are good at alchemy and have rich experience and unique insights in cultivating spiritual plants and beasts. There are also many mountains, rivers, and lakes in the sect for cultivating spiritual plants and beasts. Fang Zheng monk said with a smile. For example, the huge lake in front that stretches for dozens of miles is called Qianlong Lake. As the name suggests, it raises many dragons, pythons, anacondas, etc. Most of them are second grade, and there are dozens or hundreds of third grade and above. Lu Xuan couldn't help but be amazed. The third grade monster beast is equivalent to the early and middle stages of the foundation building among the cultivators. You know, there are only a few foundation building cultivators in Linyang market. In other words, this huge lake can completely crush the entire Linyang market. And it is just a base for raising spiritual beasts in Qianjian sect. After such a comparison, he has a simple understanding of the so-called sect heritage. The flying boat flew over Qianlong Lake, and a huge star-headed black dragon suddenly attacked from the lake, but was blocked by a transparent aura shield above the lake, and fell back into the lake. It seemed to trigger a chain reaction, and the calm lake surface suddenly set off turbulent waves. Dragons, anacondas, and pythons of various shapes rushed out, and then fell back into the lake. Don't worry, fellow disciples. There are powerful restrictions in the outer circle of Qianlong Lake, and these dragons and anacondas can't break out. Moreover, each dragon and anaconda baby has a restraining magic weapon on its body. If you notice any unusual movement, you can easily control them with the magic weapon. At the edge of the lake in the distance, 3 Qianjian sect monks were throwing large pieces of fresh monster meat into Qianlong Lake. As soon as they were thrown, they were fiercely fought over by the fierce dragons and anacondas. Seeing this scene, Lu Xuan remembered the scene of feeding Koi in his previous life, but now the scene was many times bigger. The brothers there should have received the task of raising the demon beasts in Qianlong Lake in the sect. The elegant monk explained. After becoming an outer sect disciple, you are free most of the time except for certain times. You can practice skills and spells, or study skills such as alchemy, weapons, arrays, and talismans. From time to time, there will be foundation building monks or even giant monks on various mountains to teach and answer questions. This can be said to be the greatest invisible wealth after becoming an outer sect disciple of Xuan sect. Of course, while enjoying rights, you must also bear obligations. The sect will assign various tasks to the disciples. Simple and safe ones include cultivating spiritual plants, raising spiritual beasts, assisting in refining elixirs and magic tools, and processing materials for making talismans. There is basically no need to worry about safety issues for these, but there are also tasks with high risks. The most common ones are to clear and solve the demon beasts and evil spirits, pick special spiritual medicines in secret realms, etc. However, these types of tasks often mean rich rewards. There are tasks that can be chosen freely, and there are also tasks that are actively sent by the sect or the elders of the master's sect. If you don't do it for a long time, or refuse tasks many times, you may be punished to a certain extent. After completing the task, you can get something called sword seal, which is equivalent to the special currency circulated in the Xuan sect. In addition to completing the task, you can also get the sword seal by making special contributions to the sect and establishing merits for the sect. The sword seal can be exchanged for various things, skills, instruments, elixirs, talismans, etc. It can also be exchanged for spirit stones, but it is generally not done that way. The handsome monk introduced Xuan and others in detail. Some of these people already knew it well, while others were in contact with these things for the first time. Xuan listened with great interest and remembered it in his heart. After a while, the shuttle-shaped flying boat stopped on a verdant mountain peak, with several elegant buildings on the mountainside. Dear fellow disciples, there are still a few days before you officially join the sect. You can rest and practice here during these days. Just remember not to wander around randomly. You don't have a disciple identity badge yet. There are formations and prohibitions everywhere in the sect. If you force your way in, it will cause unnecessary trouble, and you may even get injured or die. If you need anything, you can always find me, or other sect monks. The elegant and upright monk instructed Xuan and others. Everyone nodded, and after the Xuan sect monk left, they each chose a room and went in to rest. Xuan was not picky and found a remote and quiet room. He read books and practiced every day and occasionally chatted with Bailey Giant King who lived next door. Although he was a little anxious about the spirit beasts and plants in the Sheng bag, he had no place to put them for the time being, so he had to keep them in the Sheng bag. During this period, he also met young talents in the same industry. After a brief contact, most of the cultivators who were originally enthusiastic and polite suddenly became much colder after knowing that Xuan was of ordinary origin and was obsessed with spiritual plants. Only 2 or 3 cultivators did not change their attitudes. In the cultivation world, cultivation is the right way, so after hearing Xuan's plan, everyone quickly judged that he would soon be left behind in the cultivation process. In addition, the status of spiritual plant masters is at the bottom of the cultivation skills, far inferior to alchemists, array masters, etc. So it is natural for Xuan to be neglected or even despised. Xuan didn't think so. With the white light ball, he was more confident than the cultivators with extraordinary talents and backgrounds present. No matter what the outside world is like, he just needs to farm peacefully. Chapter 102 Cave. In the elegant and simple room, Xuan put a few things on the table and looked at them carefully. At this time, 2 days had passed since he officially entered the Xuan sect. Although his qualifications were ordinary, it was a fact that he had the 8th level of key training at the age of less than 20. He was in the upper middle level among the cultivators who signed up, and with the guarantee of the King Iron Order, he was able to join the Xuan sect easily. After officially becoming an outer disciple of the Xuan sect, he gathered with everyone in a wide square, listened to the speech and instructions of the head of the Xuan sect, and then received the necessary items for the outer disciples who had just entered the sect. The items mainly included 2 standard robes of the same style, with simple runes such as dust removal, waterproof and fireproof, and a standard flying sword, which was of the 2nd grade, but of ordinary quality, much worse than the 2nd grade sword grass in Xuan's hand. In addition, there was the most important thing, a black nameplate, which was integrated with a drop of Lu Xuan's blood, and was closely related to Lu Xuan. This identity nameplate represents the identity of the cultivator behind it. It allows Xianjian sect disciples to enter and leave the sect freely, and can also enter most areas of Xianjian sect. It also records the number of sword seals owned by outer disciples. At the same time, new disciples can also exchange one practice method and two magic methods from the Sutra Pavilion, based on this identity nameplate. Of course, there are grade restrictions, and it is limited to the key training stage. Subsequent stages or other methods are either taught by high-level cultivators, or exchanged for sword seals. After receiving the necessary items, Lu Xuan selected his own cave in the sect within the specified area according to the guidance of the cultivators in the sect. Each outer disciple can choose his own cave, but the range is subject to certain limitations, and the area cannot be too large. Lu Xuan conducted a field survey for a day and finally chose a quiet cave on a tall mountain. The cave is located in a remote location, and there are not many fellow disciples living around it. There is a house in the middle, with a quiet room for Lu Xuan to practice, as well as an alchemy room and an instrument room, where some simple elixirs and magic tools can be refined. According to the senior brother of Xianjian sect who introduced this cave once belonged to a gifted outer sect disciple who broke through to the foundation building stage several years ago, and entered the inner sect to become an inner sect disciple. The cave was empty, but because of its remote location, no other Xianjian sect cultivators chose this place. The remote location just happened to fit Lu Xuan's idea. He cultivated spiritual plants and raised spiritual beasts. Under the premise of having a white light ball, he wished that the more remote the better. The entire cave is located on the mountainside, with abundant and pure spiritual energy. The area is about 6 acres, which is several times larger than the more than 1 acre yard rented in Linyang Market. After Lu Xuan's cultivation broke through to the 8th level of key training, his spiritual power increased a lot, and he could perform more spiritual plant techniques such as spiritual rain technique and earth attraction technique. Although 6 acres is relatively large, it is also within the tolerance range. There are 4 square spiritual fields in the cave. Because many spiritual plants are not planted, they have been abandoned a lot, and many weeds grow in the spiritual fields. In such a rich spiritual environment, weeds are much tougher than ordinary grass leaves. Fortunately, Lu Xuan's earth drawing technique has reached the minor level. His spiritual consciousness extends into the spiritual soil, sensing every tiny root of the weeds. Then, the earth drawing technique accurately controls the changes in the spiritual soil, so that the weeds can be easily pulled out. He piled all the weeds together, and a blazing fireball fell on the weeds, which soon burned to black ash. Black ash can make the spiritual soil more fertile, and Lu Xuan sprinkled it evenly in the 4 spiritual fields. In addition to the spiritual fields, there is also a spring in the cave, and the gurgling spiritual spring gushes out from the spiritual eye, forming a natural spiritual spring pool around it. There are several strange stones in the spiritual spring pool. Under the scouring of the spiritual spring water rich in spiritual energy day and night, various natural patterns are formed on the surface of the strange stones, which complement the spiritual spring pool, and reveal a natural and mysterious meaning. Near the spring, the former owner of the mansion also dug out a small well. The edge of the stone well was lined with silver white bricks and stones, with faint patterns painted on them. The well mouth was not big, and it was more than half a foot deep. Lu Xuan scooped a handful of well water, and found that in addition to the pure spiritual energy of the spiritual spring itself, the well water also had a chill, making the well water more suitable for alchemy and brewing spiritual wine. In addition, there was an animal pen behind the house, which could be used to raise spiritual beasts and keep them in the pen. Behind the animal pen, there was a cave with strange rocks and no traces of human intervention. This will be my cave for a long time in the future. Lu Xuan stood on a high place, overlooking the entire cave, with a lot of emotion in his heart. The small courtyard outside the original market town had less than half an acre of spiritual fields, mixed and turbid spiritual energy, and a mixed crowd of monks, who lived in fear every day. Then to the house near the central area, there is more than 1 acre of spiritual fields and a small spiritual spring. Both the concentration of spiritual energy and the safety of the house have been greatly improved. Now, the cave with an area of nearly 6 acres, natural spiritual springs and wells, and animal pens, the concentration and purity of spiritual energy, and safety are not to mention. All these huge changes made Xuan feel unreal. He took a deep breath, and then the corners of his mouth rose, and his heart was filled with pride. Such a good cave, it would be embarrassing if I don't grow something good. He adjusted his mentality and took out the life bag. Many spiritual plants and animals have been in the life bag for a full month. The first to come out was the cloud stepping lynx, with heavy feet landing on the ground, and a pair of green eyes observing everything around. It seemed to be a little dissatisfied with Xuan. It always loved to bark in front of Xuan, but it remained silent a little abnormally. Xuan knew that it had been in the dark and chaotic life bag for too long, and was a little upset, so he gently comforted it, and pulled the 2 tufts of grey hair on the tip of its ears. Ah! The cloud stepping lynx made a rough sound, and walked away gracefully, familiarizing itself with the environment of the cave. After that, it was the stupid grass puppet. It didn't know what it was doing in the life bag. Many grey grasses were tangled together. As soon as it landed, the huge grey grass head kept turning, as if it found that the spiritual field that it had inspected countless times in the past had undergone earth-shaking changes. With its simple intelligence, it couldn't cope with such a huge change. It stopped in place, and the grey grass knotted on its body slowly swam and untied little by little. 4 iron claw crab juveniles fell to the ground, one of which was facing up with its abdomen, supporting itself with its blue-black claws like a big knife, and turned its body over. After staying in the life bag for so long, although its vitality was well maintained, it looked much thinner, because it had not been fed for a while, and even the opening and closing of its claws had a sense of weakness. As if they had sensed the location of the spiritual spring, the 4 young iron-clawed crabs all crawled into the spiritual spring and hid under the strange rocks. Under the nourishment of the rich spiritual energy, they suddenly became lively, holding their sharp claws high, and their bulging eyeballs seemed to show disdain. Seeing that the iron-clawed crabs were still unruly, Xuan finally felt relieved. Chapter 103, Skipping Classes and Farming. After releasing the cloud-stepping lynx, the grass puppet, and the iron-claw crab, Xuan quickly took all the spiritual plants out of the sheng bag. The 2nd grade King Neolingcha and the Tangu bamboo, which were directly transplanted, have been in the sheng bag for more than a month, but they still maintain their vigorous vitality, not much different from when they were first put in. As for the 3rd grade Huan iron luo fruit and jiaoteng, perhaps because of the experience of the previous 2 transplants, or the 3rd grade sheng bag has weakened the effect on the 3rd grade spiritual plants, their vitality is a little weaker than when they were put in. Xuan was heartbroken and quickly replanted the Huan iron luo fruit and jiaoteng in the spiritual field. In the past, Meng's mother moved 3 times in order to give her children a good educational environment. Now I'm moving you for the 2nd time, so that you can enjoy a pure and rich spiritual environment. You must understand my good intentions and recover your growth. Xuan sighed, while watering with the spirit rain technique. The Huan iron luo fruit continued to secrete white smoke, which gradually became thicker, hiding the spiritual fruit inside. Xuan took out another bottle of green python blood, and poured the red and green snake blood on the dry vines of jiaoteng. After not being nourished by snake blood for a while, jiaoteng's appetite became much bigger, and absorbed twice as much snake blood as usual. It did not stop sucking blood until the vines showed enchanting red and green patterns. Xuan then planted King Neolingcha and Tangu bamboo separately. The copper and iron ore powder in the storage bag was fully prepared with the hard work of the iron claw crab. He sprinkled circles of copper and iron ore powder around the Tangu bamboo. He scooped a cup of slightly cold well water from the ancient well and poured it on King Neolingcha. On the tangled tea tree, the thin green leaves were stimulated by the cold well water and trembled slightly. After dealing with these spiritual plants transplanted halfway, Xuan took out the mist-hidden array and controlled the changes in the fog on the array disk with spiritual power, shrouding the entire cave in thick fog. With the cover of the formation, Xuan no longer worried about fellow disciples spying on the cave. He specially selected this cave, where there were not many fellow disciples on the mountain. There were only a few courtyards at the foot of the mountain, and there was a cave on the other side of the mountainside. The owner of the cave might have gone out to practice, and Lu Xuan did not see any trace when he visited. Although there were no evil beasts invading the Xianjian sect, the formation seemed a bit redundant, but Lu Xuan had always been free and lazy, and the spiritual field was the foundation of his livelihood, and its importance was self-evident, so he decided to activate the formation to prevent possible spying. After opening the mist-hidden maze, Lu Xuan did not rest. He used the earth-inducing technique to comb the remaining spiritual fields, took out 200 dry and slender spiritual firefly grass seeds, and 28 first-grade blood jade ginseng seeds, and planted them one by one. After everything was done, he had time to rest. He sat at the table, and flipped through a manual about the sect. The manual recorded the composition of the sect, various special treasures, and the sect's rules and regulations. "Brother Lu, I'm here to see you." A familiar voice came from outside the courtyard. It was Bailey Jianqing, who had established a certain relationship in Jianmen Town. Lu Xuan controlled the formation, and the fog retreated to both sides. He opened the courtyard door, and Bailey Jianqing immediately flashed in. The distance between the two caves was less than 20 miles, which would not take long for a cultivator with high key training. "Brother Lu, there is a late-stage foundation building uncle from Xian'an Peak coming to teach the cultivation method. Do you want to go and listen together?" It is said that the uncle has a deep understanding of the various basic cultivation methods in the sect, and has a unique and profound understanding. When he teaches the cultivation knowledge, he explains it in a simple and easy to understand way, which is very popular among many outer sect brothers and sisters. Bailey Jianqing said excitedly, "I have something else to do, so I won't go with you." Lu Xuan planned to go to the Synod Hall of Xianjian sect to see what spiritual plants he could grow. "What about this afternoon? I heard that a sword master is coming to teach and practice sword techniques. That uncle is so devoted to sword techniques that he has a profound understanding of sword techniques. His random moves can make people suddenly enlightened. If I miss it, I don't know when the next time will be." Bailey Jianqing said with a look of longing. It can be seen that he has great respect for the sword master. Lu Xuan shook his head to refuse. Bailey Jianqing looked over and saw the cleaned and renovated spiritual field. A strange look appeared on his face. "Brother Lu, don't you want to stay in the cave to plant spiritual plants?" "Indeed." Lu Xuan nodded and admitted. "You traveled thousands of miles and went through so much hardship to enter the Xianjian sect, not to practice the skills, not to hone the sword techniques, not to go to the foundation building uncle's class, but just to farm." Bailey Jianqing couldn't help but hold his forehead. His tone revealed a sense of incomprehension but deep shock. This was indeed a bit unbelievable to him. In his opinion, Lu Xuan's attitude towards spiritual plants could even be considered as crazy. How could there be a cultivator who didn't practice cultivation and swordsmanship just to cultivate spiritual plants? Seeing his expression, Lu Xuan chuckled. "I just know myself well, and know that I'm dull in talent. Even if I listen to the foundation building master uncle imparting cultivation knowledge and the essence of swordsmanship, it will be useless. You can understand and comprehend it just by listening once, but I need 10 times or even more to understand and master that knowledge. I only have a little talent in cultivating spiritual plants. In this case, why don't I play to my strengths and avoid my weaknesses and concentrate on cultivating spiritual plants?" His tone was sincere and his expression was sincere, which well showed the identity of an ordinary cultivator who had no hope of cultivation and placed his hopes on spiritual plants. If you are not as talented as others, then listen more times and practice more times than other fellow disciples and accumulate slowly so that you won't fall behind too much. Bailey Jianqing suggested. "Who wants to accumulate slowly and still fall behind? What I want is to overtake on the curve." "Okay." Lu Xuan muttered in his heart, looked at Bailey Jianqing, and whispered 2 words. "Swordgrass." Bailey Jianqing's face suddenly changed, his eyes narrowed into slits, and he smiled and said flatteringly, "If Brother Lu doesn't want to attend the class, then I won't force you. I will try my best to record a copy and bring it to you. Brother Lu, you just need to stay in the cave and cultivate the spiritual plants well." when you can cultivate sword grass, just remember my little hard work. After saying that, he left first. After Lu Xuan and Bailey Giant King left, he opened the formation and came to a hall called Sinung according to the manual. Sinung Hall is in charge of the supply, demand, cultivation, and seeding of most spiritual plants in Xianjian sect, especially those public medicine gardens and spiritual fields in the sect. What kind and grade of spiritual plants to plant, and how many are planted, are all decided by Sinung Hall. Most of the spiritual plant tasks that appeared in the sect were issued by the Sinung Hall, which was full of spiritual plant masters who were good at cultivating spiritual plants. Lu Xuan came here to see if he could find suitable spiritual plants to cultivate from the hall. Chapter 104, Flowing Light Wood. The Sinung Hall was built on a wide flat ground, covering a large area. Lu Xuan entered the central hall, which was relatively quiet, with only more than 10 high-level key training monks. Lu Xuan looked around and came to a mahogany counter not far from him. Behind the counter, an outer disciple of the Xianjian sect was flipping through a tattered book with great interest. This Xianjian sect monk had an ordinary appearance, dark skin, and a temperament like an old farmer who had worked in the fields for many years, simple and approachable. "Excuse me, senior brother." Lu Xuan walked forward and said softly, "Junior brother, if you have anything to know, feel free to ask. I will tell you everything I know." The old farmer monk closed the book and said with a smile, "My name is Lu Xuan. I'm one of the newest outer disciples who have just entered the sect. I like to raise some flowers and plants, spiritual beasts and birds. I just don't know how to grow and cultivate them in the sect, so I came here to ask for details. So it's junior brother Lu. You can just call me senior brother Guo." The old farmer monk stood up and saluted Lu Xuan with his fists. Lu Xuan hurriedly returned the salute. "Junior brother Lu, what grades of spiritual plants have you planted before you joined the sect? If you have little experience, it's best to take it step by step. Don't be too eager for quick success, and try to plant high-grade spiritual plants right away. If you have rich experience, then it's easy. Just recommend the types of spiritual plants to you, junior brother." Lu Xuan pondered for a moment. "I have planted a large number of non-grade spiritual plants, several first-grade spiritual plants, and the quality is quite good after they mature. In addition, there are 2 second-grade spiritual plants in the cultivation stage, and the growth momentum is also quite good." Lu Xuan did not tell the truth about his spiritual plant level, and concealed the fact that he cultivated second-grade swordgrass and dark marrow ganoderma, and was cultivating third-grade spiritual plants. The information he said was enough to show that he was experienced in cultivating spiritual plants. Since junior brother Lu is interested in such an experience, I personally suggest skipping the non-grade spiritual plants and starting directly with the first and second grades. By the way, junior brother Lu, you have not been in the sect for a long time, and there should be no sword seal in your identity nameplate, right? Lu Xuan nodded in acknowledgement. In this case, many types of spiritual plants cannot be planted. The spiritual plant seedlings and spiritual seeds provided in the Sinung Hall are divided into 3 types. One type can be purchased directly with spiritual stones. The price is cheaper than the market outside the sect, but it is difficult to buy high-grade spiritual seeds. Another type requires the consumption of sword seals. These spiritual seeds are higher in grade and rarity than the previous type. In addition to the consumption of sword seals, the last type also has additional requirements. The identity, status, and contribution of the buyer to the sect must meet the conditions. For example, the spiritual plant master must be an inner disciple or even a true disciple. The old farmer monk introduced Lu Xuan in detail the conditions for obtaining spiritual seeds in the sect. "I see." Lu Xuan nodded to show that he understood. Rare or even unique spiritual seeds in the sect, raising the threshold for obtaining them will naturally reduce the possibility of circulation to the outside world. He was satisfied with being able to obtain second-grade spiritual seeds, so he smiled and said to the old farmer monk, "Then I will select 1 or 2 that can be purchased with spirit stones. Please recommend 1 or 2, brother. This is my job." The old farmer monk took out 2 jade books from under the mahogany counter and placed them in front of Lu Xuan. These two jade books, one records the first grade spirit plants that can be purchased with spirit stones, and the other records the second grade spirit plants. The jade book has specific patterns of spirit plants. When the pattern is bright, it means that there are spirit seeds available now. When the pattern is dim, it means that there are no spirit seeds of this type at present. It needs to be recorded and wait for a certain period of time. Xuan opened the first grade jade book in his hand. The jade book recorded hundreds of common first grade spirit plants, including the blood jade ginseng and red cloud pine that he had planted. He didn't see the pure snow lotus. I don't know if it needs to consume the sword seal or there is no such spirit seed in the sect. There are 20 or 30 kinds of bright patterns, which present the spirit plants vividly in front of Xuan. He quickly flipped through them and then opened the jade book that recorded the second grade spirit plants. The number of spiritual plants on the jade book was reduced by more than half, only about 50, of which less than 20 were lit. Xuan memorized them one by one and compared them silently in his mind. There are currently 200 ungraded spiritual fireflies in his spiritual field, mainly for cultivation rewards, and 28 first grade blood jade ginseng, cultivated with the blood jade ginseng spiritual seeds he condensed. In addition, there are 3 second grade king neolingcha, 5 second grade copper bone bamboo, a 3rd grade gyro vine, and a 3rd grade Xuan iron luo fruit. As the cultivation level is improved to the high level of key training, the rewards provided by low-grade spiritual plants gradually become a bit useless. Xuan first eliminated the first grade jade book. As for the second grade spiritual seeds, he planned to choose only 2 as a transition. After weighing again and again, he finally made a choice and chose the second grade liaguangwood and yinhui. The bark and leaves of liaguangwood can be used to refine certain types of talismans and have a wide range of uses. As for yinhui, it can be used to assist in the practice of extremely yin type exercises and can also be used as a material for refining corresponding elixirs. More importantly, as the years go by, the 100-year-old yinhui can nourish the ghosts, and the 1000-year-old yinhui can refine high-grade magic tools, which are rare treasures in the eyes of ghost cultivators. That's right, yinhui is the first time Xuan has encountered a year-old spiritual plant. The spiritual plants he cultivated before all matured between March and a year, and basically lost their effectiveness after maturity. However, this yinhui has no specific maturity period. The longer it grows, the higher its value. Xuan was very curious about what kind of light ball reward he would get from planting this type of spiritual plant. He closed the jade book and said to the old farmer-like cultivator named Guo with a smile, "Then I will choose 2 of these liaguangmu and yinhui, and please ask brother Guo to get them for me." "Okay, brother Lu, wait a moment." The old farmer cultivator entered the inner hall of the synod hall, and in less than a moment, he came to Xuan holding a jade plate and a black cloth bag. There are 2 flowing lightwood spiritual seeds on the jade disc, and there are 2 yin sephora seedlings in the black cloth bag. Yin sephora needs to grow in a yin environment to avoid strong light damage to the seedlings, so the black cloth bag is used to block the light. "Please take a look, junior brother Lu." Xuan carefully examined the 2 spiritual seeds in the jade disc. The flowing lightwood spiritual seeds were large in size and oval in shape. There were dense and complex natural patterns on the surface. The spiritual light surged, and the patterns quietly changed slightly. He opened the black cloth bag again and took a quick glance. There were 2 sephora seedlings about 1 foot tall in the bag. The roots and stems were wrapped in black spiritual soil. The seedlings were black in color, giving people a feeling of yin and spooky. "Okay, senior brother, what are the prices of the flowing lightwood spiritual seed and the yin sephora seedling?" Flowing lightwood is 55 spiritual stones per plant, and yin sephora seedling is 60 spiritual stones per plant. This is the price stipulated in the synod hall. It is much cheaper than outside, so I will not bargain. Please understand, junior brother Lu. The old farmer monk seemed to see that Xuan had a superb bargaining skill at a glance, and took it out. Xuan swallowed the words that were about to come to his throat, took out 230 spiritual stones, and handed them to the old farmer monk. Chapter 105, Small 5-Element Kung Fu Cloud Tengshu. Xuan left the synod hall, looked around, and walked to a pile of spiritual cranes. The spiritual cranes were half a foot tall, with elegant and graceful postures. Occasionally, they spread their wings and flew at a very fast speed. They were spiritual birds specially cultivated by the Xuan sect to carry out to disciples. All you need to do is pay a spiritual stone and tell the spiritual crane the address, and it can carry the cultivator to the destination quickly, which is very convenient. Xuan took out a spiritual stone, and more than 10 spiritual cranes surrounded him, looking at the spiritual stone in his hand eagerly, but they were well educated and did not stretch their mouths to fight for it. In front of the spiritual stone, even the fairy-like spiritual cranes will fall. Xuan looked at the more than 10 spiritual cranes with familiar movements, sighed secretly, picked a spiritual crane that looked relatively tall, put the spiritual stone in a small bamboo tube tied to its heel, and climbed on it. Scripture Pavilion. The spiritual crane made a crisp crane cry, spread its wings, rushed into the sky, and shuttled through the clouds at a high speed. In less than half a minute, it stopped in front of a tall building. The building is divided into 7 floors, and the area of each floor is getting smaller from bottom to top. There is a plaque in the middle, with 3 large characters of Scripture Pavilion written on it. Xuan entered the first floor of the Sutra Pavilion. There was a simple ban at the door. He took out his identity nameplate and shook it in front of the ban. A small door that only allowed one person to pass through appeared. After successfully passing the ban, Xuan found that the interior of the building was hollow, with 2 stone stairs winding up. There were many books, jade slips, etc. on the walls. Each floor had different bands. There was also a bright galaxy on the top, and countless light spots were running slowly according to a certain law. In the middle of the first floor, an old man with white hair and a childlike face was dozing off and resting with his eyes closed. Xuan's spiritual consciousness swept over and found that the old man was a high-level key training cultivator. He wanted to call him senior brother, but he hesitated for a while and finally did not call him out. You know, there are too many legends about the Sutra Pavilion. The librarian in the real life of his previous life, as well as the various grandfathers hiding in the Sutra Pavilion in the novel, made him dare not treat them casually. Daoyao? After hesitating for a long time, he finally chose a universal title, but with a hint of respect in his tone. HMM. The white-haired old man woke up and saw Xuan beside him, rubbing his eyes. Sorry, it's really boring to guard the Sutra Pavilion, and I can't help but feel sleepy. Junior brother, there is no need to call me so distant. I'm much older than you. Just call me senior brother. Don't think too much. Before, many new junior brothers and sisters made random guesses about my cultivation strength and thought that I was not as simple as I seemed. In fact, this is just an ordinary task. Although there are fewer sword seals, it is better to be idle. I'm just an ordinary cultivator on duty in the Sutra Pavilion. Hearing what the old man said, Xuan's expression was solemn. You know, when he introduced himself to the outside world, he always called himself an ordinary spiritual plant master. Hiding this doubt deep in his heart, he said to the old man, Brother, I came to the Sutra library to choose a technique and 2 magics. This is my identity badge. Please take a look. The white-haired old man took Xuan's identity badge and used some unknown method to spy on it. He immediately realized that what Xuan said was true. New disciples do have the right to choose techniques. If you want to know what techniques you need or are suitable for you, you can ask me directly. Although there won't be any high-grade techniques, it's not bad for the key training stage. If you choose it properly, it can lay a good foundation for future practice. If you want to obtain techniques and magics later, you need to consume sword seals to exchange them. Can sword seals be exchanged for the method of refining spirit seeds? Xuan asked curiously. Of course you can. As far as I know, there are even methods for refining 5th grade and 6th grade spirit plants in the Sutra library, provided that you have enough sword seals. The white-haired old man laughed. His thoughts were self-evident. He handed Xuan a book that recorded the specific techniques and magics that Xuan could obtain. Xuan kept flipping through the books, thinking about which one he should choose. After weighing the pros and cons, he chose a method called Small 5-Element Gong. This method can be practiced in various spiritual vein environments and has strong adaptability. The spiritual power is neutral, which can slightly improve the practice speed of the 5-element magic, and can be practiced all the way to the stage of forming a pill. The disadvantage is that the practice speed is relatively slow. The reason why Xuan chose it is mainly to improve the speed of the 5-element magic. After all, the cultivation of spiritual plants mainly relies on some basic 5-element magic. After practicing this method, it can help plant spiritual plants. In addition, the spiritual power of small 5-element gong is neutral and peaceful, and other methods can be transferred to practice in the middle. Xuan considered that he might get a reward for the magic in the future, so he chose the small 5-element gong with strong compatibility. As for the magic, he currently has the master level Jengjin sword art, the 2nd grade secret technique burning blood arrow, and the 3rd grade Zunlei sword pill. His attack ability can be regarded as outstanding among the high-level cultivators of key training. For defense, he has the 1st grade wooden wall technique and the 2nd grade magic weapon red scale armor. In addition, he has the 3rd grade immaculate jade that can prevent evil spirits from invading, and the 3rd grade magic weapon hidden spirit cloak that can make him invisible for a short period of time. His shortcoming is that he does not have the right body technique and escape technique. In addition, his own defense ability is also relatively ordinary. He found several light body techniques, compared them, and finally chose a 2nd grade light body technique called Yunteng. Yunteng has a very strong ability to move and shift in a small range, and is relatively ordinary in long distance raids, but a 2nd grade light body technique is almost the same. The main reason why Xuan chose it is that the spiritual power consumed when performing Yunteng is very small, and it mainly depends on the physical strength of the cultivator himself, and the changes in his steps. If it is combined with the hidden spirit cloak, it complements each other. In the invisible state, his spiritual power is consumed very quickly. If he performs a light body technique that consumes a lot of spiritual power when escaping, it is likely to expose his body. For another technique, he chose a 2nd grade body refining method, the wild elephant force. After successful practice, you can improve the strength of muscles and bones, and strengthen your defense ability. Brother, then I will choose the small 5-element gong method, and there are 2 other methods, Yunteng Shu and Barbarian Elephant Jin. The small 5-element gong only provides the first 2 levels. After practicing to the foundation building stage, the subsequent exercises can be obtained by entering the sutra library, the white-haired old man said, and closed his eyes solemnly. In an instant, a light bird shuttled out from the top of the sutra library, paused 3 times, and flew to the old man with 3 exquisite jade slips in its mouth. These are the jade slips of the 3 exercises. Put them on your forehead. You can actively absorb the information in the jade slips. After absorbing, the jade slips will destroy themselves. You should pay attention to this. Xuan nodded, indicating that he understood. Chapter 106, Solitary Yin can grow. After taking the technique from the sutra library, Xuan went directly back to the cave. He took out 2 flowing lightwood spiritual seeds and 2 yinhui seedlings, and went to the spiritual field. He found an empty area, and performed the earth attraction technique. The structure of the spiritual soil changed slightly. He placed 2 palm-sized oval spiritual seeds into the cracks, and buried them in the shallow layer of the spiritual soil. His mind was focused on the spiritual seeds in the spiritual soil, and a thought came to Xuan's mind. Flowing lightwood, a 2nd grade spiritual plant. The mature leaves of the flowing lightwood can be used to refine certain talismans, and the bark can be tanned into a leather inner armor type magic tool. The lines on the flowing lightwood spiritual seed will change quietly when it germinates. If it is seriously unbalanced, the quality of the flowing lightwood seedlings that grow will be affected. During the germination and growth stages, wood attribute techniques need to be used to guide the changes in the lines, to ensure the quality of the flowing lightwood. Flowing light can easily confuse people. It seems that this is what we need to pay attention to when cultivating the flowing lightwood. As for the wood attribute magic, the wood growth magic has reached the realm of minor success, so there will be no problem in cultivating the 2nd grade spiritual plant. Xuan thought secretly in his heart, and the spiritual power surged. The strands of spiritual rain turned into thin lines, seeping into the spiritual soil, and being absorbed by the flowing lightwood spiritual seed. Yinhui has special requirements for the growth environment. Where should I plant it? Lu Xuan looked up and observed the cave, paying attention to every place in the cave that might be suitable for the growth of Yanhui. I got it. Isn't there a ready-made cave? The height is not bad, and there is no light inside, which fully meets the growth conditions of Yanhui. Lu Xuan came to the entrance of the cave with 2 Yanhui seedlings. The inside of the cave was kept relatively dry, and you would feel a slight coolness when you entered it. As for the height, Lu Xuan estimated that he would not have to worry about it for a long time. When the Yanhui grows to that stage, he may have entered the inner sect to practice farming. He selected 2 locations and planted the 2 Yanhui seedlings in them. His mind was focused on the Yanhui seedlings, which were full of yin energy. Yanhui, a second-grade spiritual plant, can be processed after maturity to increase the speed of practicing yin attribute exercises, and can also be used as a material for refining certain elixirs. After growing to a certain age, strange changes may occur. There are special requirements for the growth environment surrounding spiritual energy and watering spiritual springs. It cannot be exposed to cultivators with vigorous blood and violent masculine spiritual energy, otherwise it will cause damage to the Yanhui. Whatever yin and yang adjustment is needed, the solitary yin can grow. Environment, spiritual energy, spiritual springs. I can only try my best to meet them. Fortunately, there is this cool cave and the amazingly cold spiritual well, which should be enough in the early stage. Lu Xuan thought secretly. After planting the Liaguan wood and Yanhui, he patrolled the spiritual field and met every subtle requirement of them by controlling the real-time status of many spiritual plants. Afterwards, he returned to the house and absorbed the jade slips of the 3 techniques. A large amount of information poured into his mind, and the jade slips in his hand immediately turned into powder. No, it's full. The knowledge in his mind was so much that it was about to overflow, making him feel dizzy. After memorizing the 3 techniques, he tried to digest and understand the content. In less than a moment, he lay directly on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Time flies, and a month has passed in a blink of an eye. In the month, since entering the Xianjian sect, Lu Xuan basically stayed in his cave to cultivate spiritual plants, tease the cloud-stepping lynx, and squeeze the 4 still unruly iron claw crabs. The rest of the time was used to practice the techniques and spells he had obtained. After successfully entering the small 5-element kung fu, he had a better understanding of the 5-element of spiritual power and various basic 5-element spells. He also had a glimpse of the Yunteng technique and the savage elephant strength, but his talent was there, and he did not make much progress. Lu Xuan just felt that he was more agile, and his muscles, bones, skin, and flesh were stronger and more resistant to beatings. During this period, because of skipping too many classes, Lu Xuan felt that he was a bit too much, so he invited Bailey Giant King to listen to 2 lectures by foundation building monks. One lecture taught the precautions of cultivation, and the other lecture practiced swordsmanship. During the class, the 2 foundation building monks asked questions from time to time, guiding many outer disciples to think and comprehend. After class, the disciples gathered in groups of 3 or 5 to discuss their experiences, and even when the debate was heated, they would have actual combat. This made Lu Xuan, who was mixed in with many unpolished jades of cultivation and sword geniuses, seem a little abrupt. He hid in the corner and was as quiet as a chicken, and only sighed in his heart that farming was better and wonderful. A month later, the ungraded Lingyian grass and the 1st grade blood jade ginseng both grew well. Because the sect's spiritual power was far more rich and pure than that in Linyang market, the Lingyian grass grew gratifyingly and was full of vitality, and the blood jade ginseng, under the stimulation of this spiritual energy, had a much stronger ability to move, and large-scale group ginseng movements often occurred. The 2nd grade King Neo spirit tea has entered the mature stage, and the tea leaves are fragrant and attractive. The progress bar below is already half full. Lu Xuan estimates that it won't take long before he can get a new light ball reward. The 2nd grade copper bone bamboo, the 3rd grade Huan iron luo fruit and Jiao Teng are growing smoothly step by step. The newly planted Liaguan wood has broken through the soil, and there are dense and complex lines on the tender green rhizomes. Lu Xuan observes it from time to time. If he finds that there are lines that are squeezed, he will use the wood growth technique. to urge the spiritual power, to guide and comb them, so as to restore them to normal. The yin hui in the cave has grown about half a foot taller, and the yin aura is gloomy. After entering the cave, you can feel a distinct chill. The cave spirit plants are on the right track, and Lu Xuan has a new plan. He plans to go to the General Affairs Hall to take a task that suits him, and earn some sword seals. Sword seals are extremely important in the Xianjian sect. If you want to get any precious treasures, you must consume sword seals to obtain them. When searching for spiritual seeds directly in the Sinner Hall, Lu Xuan learned that with spiritual stones alone, he could only get some ordinary first and second grade spiritual plants. Higher grade and more rare spiritual plants would need to be exchanged for sword seals. Lu Xuan naturally could not accept this. There are many factors that affect the richness of the light group rewards, two of which are the grade and type of spiritual plants. The higher the grade and the rarer the species, the richer the reward will be. So he must earn enough sword seals to prepare for planting high-grade rare spiritual plants in the future. General Affairs Hall. Lu Xuan jumped down from the body of the spiritual crane, observed it, and entered the lobby. There was a huge light curtain in the lobby that was 10 feet long and 3 or 4 feet wide. Lines of large characters emerged on the light curtain, surging from the bottom to the top, refreshing the information. It is said that the light curtain was generated by a 5th grade magic weapon, which was hidden in the General Affairs Hall. When a sect monk needs to issue a task, he can inform the monk who controls the magic weapon in the hall. When accepting a mission, one uses the spiritual consciousness to touch the writing on the light curtain. After absorbing it, it means that the mission has been accepted, and the mission information on the light curtain disappears immediately. It's quite convenient. Lu Xuan sighed and looked at the huge light curtain. Chapter 107 Monkey Orchid, a natural emoticon. On the light screen, a stream of information quickly passed by. More than a dozen outer disciples and Lu Xuan were paying attention to every word that appeared. For the monster hunting mission, you need to go to Loyan Mountain to hunt first and second grade monsters. Mission reward: 50 sword seals. Requirements: you need to meet the minimum number of monsters to hunt. If you hunt a large number of monsters, you can get extra sword seal rewards. For the spiritual plant picking mission, you need to go to Xuan to pick a 3rd grade alien ghost vine. Mission reward: 100 sword seals. For the evil spirit investigation mission, there are evil spirits in Kangsing City. Their strength is not lower than that of high level key training cultivators. You need to hunt them down. The mission reward is adjusted according to the strength, number, and degree of handling of the evil spirits. The most frequently appearing messages attracted the attention of the cultivators present. Which senior sister or junior sister is willing to go with me to the Loyan Mountains to hunt monsters? If you are compatible, I can give you more sword seals as rewards for the mission. Xuan, 100 sword seals. It's really exciting, but it's a pity that my strength is a little bit lacking. A cultivator at the 8th level of key training stared at the task of picking the 3rd grade alien ghost vine. His face kept changing, and it can be seen that he was quite entangled. Are there any senior brothers and sisters who can team up with the evil spirit in Kangsing City? I'm at the 9th level of key training, good at fire magic, and have a treasure to exorcise evil spirits. I think we can join forces to easily take down the evil spirit. A young cultivator with a proud look said. Lu Xuan glanced at the tasks with rich rewards and kept looking down. In similar tasks, some people see opportunities, but he sees risks. He has been cramming common sense and cultivation recently and learned that the Loyan Mountains and Xuan that appear in the tasks are both chaotic secret realms in the cultivation world. Sect forces cannot occupy them, or the cost of occupying them is far greater than the benefits, so they just let them go. There are a large number of demon beasts and evil spirits, dangerous places, and of course, inexhaustible spiritual medicines and materials for demon beasts. Occasionally, someone will get a great opportunity and soar to the sky. In a word, opportunities and risks coexist. Lu Xuan already has a stable opportunity, so there is no need to risk his life. He can just stay in the Xianjian sect and cultivate spiritual plants in peace and stability. The tasks below the light curtain are much easier, and of course the sword seal rewards are also reduced. Postpartum care task. The Fange sky dolphin raised has just given birth to a cub not long ago, and the monks are needed to help take care of it. Due to the protective psychology of the cub, the Fange sky dolphin is extremely irritable. Those with relevant experience are preferred. The task reward is 35 sword seals. Postpartum care for Sos. Xuan hesitated for a while, but finally decided to give up. He chose a task to cultivate spiritual plants. Take care of the 2nd grade spiritual plant monkey orchid for 3 months, and you will be rewarded with 30 sword seals. Xuan thought it would not be a big problem to cultivate the 2nd grade spiritual plant. If he could not cultivate it normally, he could just find an opportunity to pull out the 2nd grade spiritual plant and plant it again, so as to understand the current status of the spiritual plant. He was full of confidence, and his spiritual consciousness extended, gently touching the line of words on the light curtain. Suddenly, the words disappeared, and the specific address and details of the task appeared in Xuan's mind. He left the General Affairs Hall, and found a spiritual crane nearby. He told the spiritual crane his destination, and the spiritual crane carried him to fly rapidly in the sky. A moment later, the spiritual crane landed in a valley. The valley was extremely quiet, shrouded in a white light cover, and the scene inside could not be seen. The spiritual crane seemed to know that it was waiting outside the valley. If it could not pick up the monks passing by in a short time, it would fly away directly. Xuan came to the outside of the light cover and said in a deep voice, "My name is Xuan, and I came here to take care of the monkey-faced orchid." As soon as the voice fell, the spiritual energy on the light shield changed rapidly, and soon, a beautiful woman in apricot yellow clothes came out to greet him. It turns out to be junior brother Lu. "I apologize for not welcoming you from afar. My surname is Yao, and I should have joined the sect before junior brother. You can call me senior sister Yao," the beautiful woman said gently. "Hello, senior sister Yao." Xuan's spiritual consciousness inadvertently scanned and realized that the woman was at the 9th level of key training. He entered the light shield under the guidance of the beautiful woman. "This valley is a medicine garden established by a foundation building uncle, and I usually manage it on his behalf. Because a junior sister who takes care of the monkey-faced orchid went out for something, there was only one person left besides me. The two of us are busy and can't split our efforts. So we issued a task in the General Affairs Hall to share the pressure between the two of us," the beautiful woman explained with a smile. Xuan entered the medicine garden and glanced around. There were many varieties of spiritual plants planted in the medicine garden. 1 or 2 of them were hidden with formations and prohibitions. He guessed that they were probably 3rd grade spiritual plants. "Senior sister Yao, I already know the specific content of the task, but I just have a little doubt. Please tell me, junior brother, after taking care of the monkey-faced orchid, can I return to my cave to practice and rest?" Of course there is no problem with this. After completing the daily cultivation task, junior brother Lu can live in the medicine garden or return to his cave to rest. It takes about 2 to 3 hours a day to take care of the monkey-faced orchid, and the rest of the time can be spent on practicing skills and spells. After all, practicing is the right way. It is impossible to give up practicing just because of cultivating spiritual plants. Senior sister is right. Xuan nodded gently. He proposed to return to his cave not because he wanted to practice, but because he needed to spend time and energy to cultivate the spiritual plants in the spiritual field of the cave. He planned to relax the cultivation requirements for the 200 spiritual fireflies and 28 blood jade ginseng in the spiritual field, and no longer cultivate them as finely as possible, saving some time to earn sword seals. However, the spiritual energy in the Xianjian sect was so rich and pure that he guessed that this could completely offset his own laziness and would not affect the quality of the Lingian grass and the blood jade ginseng. This is the spiritual field, where the 2nd grade monkey orchid is planted. The beautiful woman took Xuan to a wide spiritual field. There were many strange spiritual plants growing in the spiritual field. Inside the petals of different colors, there was a pattern that looked like a monkey's face. The pattern was lifelike, as if a monkey was hiding in the petals, looking up. The expression of each monkey face was different. Some were smiling, some were solemn, some were furious, and some were cold and indifferent. All kinds of people were seen in the 2nd grade spiritual plants. Lu Xuan walked between the ridges of the spiritual field. It seemed that there were natural expressions on both sides staring at him, which made him feel a little unnatural. This monkey-faced orchid only looks intimidating. It's actually just an ordinary spiritual plant. Just cultivated on time. If you see that the face and the petals of any monkey-faced orchid seems to have any changes, don't worry about it. There is another person in the medicine garden. His name is Yanping, and his cultivation is comparable to yours, junior brother Lu. I will introduce you two to each other later. Sorry to trouble senior sister Yao, Lu Xuan said with a smile. Chapter 108 Animated Expressions. Since junior brother Lu has chosen this mission, you should have mastered the spirit rain technique well, right? The beautiful woman said to Lu Xuan with a smile. I have made some progress, Lu Xuan said modestly. To cultivate these monkey-faced orchids, you usually need to do two things. Use the spirit rain technique at intervals to nourish them, and the other is to raise spiritual insects on time. Spirit insects are specially cultivated by the monks in the sect. Many species of spiritual insects can be used to refine elixirs, exercises, cultivate spiritual plants, raise spiritual beasts, etc. The beautiful woman took Lu Xuan into the valley, and a young man with ordinary looks was waiting in front of a wooden house. This is junior brother Yanping, junior brother Yan, this is junior brother Lu Xuan. Senior sister Yao introduced Lu Xuan and the other two to each other. From now on, the two junior brothers will mainly cultivate these monkey-faced orchids. I will stay in the valley all the time. If you have any questions, you can find me. Lu Xuan nodded. He talked with Yanping for a few words, and then, under his leadership, he chose an empty cabin for his usual practice and rest. After resting for nearly half an hour, Yanping came to call him. Junior brother Lu, it's time to start using the spiritual rain technique on the monkey-faced orchids. How about we each be responsible for an area? Lu Xuan nodded in agreement, and came to his own area. Many monkey-faced orchids with various expressions seemed to be frozen. The spiritual power in Lu Xuan's body surged, and strands of spiritual rain fell down, dripping on the petals and rhizomes of the monkey-faced orchids, and seeping into them. The spiritual rain is long and thin, and the range of the spell is precisely controlled. I didn't expect that junior brother Lu has such a deep attainment in this spiritual rain technique. Yanping, who was not far away, noticed Lu Xuan's extraordinary spiritual rain technique at a glance, and a hint of admiration appeared in his eyes. I'm a spiritual plant master myself. I don't know how many times I have used the spiritual rain technique. With more times, the level of the technique naturally improves. Lu Xuan smiled. Because of his meticulous cultivation of spiritual plants, he used the spiritual rain technique many times a day. Even if he didn't open the spell experience package, his level of the spiritual rain technique has reached the great success level. The spell was cast faster, with less spiritual energy consumption. It could precisely control the range of the spiritual rain. Even the spiritual rain, which was already as thin as a hair, could be slightly adjusted to meet the various subtle requirements of the spiritual plants. After performing a round of spiritual rain spells in the spiritual field, the monkey-faced orchid in the spiritual soil still looked around blankly, and the expression in the petals did not change at all. After a short rest, Yanping took a basin of insects of various shapes from the beautiful woman. These are used to feed the monkey-faced orchid. Just stuff them into the petals. The monkey-faced orchid will actively devour and absorb the alien insects. It is enough to feed each monkey-faced orchid with one alien insect. It is not good to feed too much. Lu Xuan nodded in understanding, and took half of the alien insects. Compared with the wild blackbud insects encountered before, these insects are much worse in terms of attack power and the degree of damage to spiritual plants. They are specially raised on a large scale by the monks in the sect for various purposes. He came to a monkey-faced orchid, and the expression in the petals looked extremely angry. Lu Xuan picked up a slender white insect, and stuffed it into the petals of the monkey-faced orchid. In the center of the petals, dense spikes suddenly emerged and pierced into the body of the white worm. The petals then closed and formed a bud shape, trembling slightly, and it could be seen that there was a lot of movement inside. After a while, the petals reopened, and a piece of insect skin without any blood or flesh residue fell to the ground, like a piece of white paper. This swallowing and absorption ability is quite strong. Lu Xuan couldn't help but sigh. Although this insect had no attack power, He was still surprised that it was killed and swallowed so easily by a second grade spiritual plant. Huh? You just had a delicious meal. Why are you looking at me so angrily? Xuan found that, after swallowing the white worm, the monkey-faced orchid still maintained an angry expression in the petals that reopened. He smiled and shook his head, and continued to feed the other monkey-faced orchids with alien insects. After finishing his work, Xuan was about to go back to the house to rest, when he suddenly stopped. His eyes stayed on a monkey-faced orchid, and the expression inside the petals of the monkey-faced orchid revealed a faint smile. If I remember correctly, this is the angry-looking monkey orchid I raised at the beginning, but why did it change? What caused the monkey orchid petals to form dynamic expressions instead of static expressions? Xuan frowned, looking at the monkey orchid in the spiritual field, and fell into deep thought. Junior brother Lu, why are you still standing there when you've finished your work? Yanping, who was passing by and preparing to go back to his room to practice, asked curiously. Brother Yan, I have a question about the monkey orchid. Brother Lu has rich experience in cultivating this kind of spiritual plants. I wonder if you can answer it for me. Brother Lu, please speak. Are the expressions generated in the petals of the monkey orchid really just formed randomly and are not following any rules? For example, when certain conditions are met, the expression will change. So this is what you considered. Brother Lu, you think too much. It is said that the first spiritual plant master who planted the monkey orchid had the same guess as you, but after some experiments, he still didn't find anything. By cultivating monkey orchid in the conventional way, we can still get mature spiritual plants of normal quality, so we gave up that idea and judged that these expressions are just a sexual characteristic of monkey orchid. Brother Lu, think about it. Even the foundation building uncle in the sect didn't find any rules after the experiment, which shows that there is nothing abnormal. Therefore, we should just cultivate it honestly and don't let our imaginations run wild. Yang Ping said in a deep voice. Brother Yan, what you said makes sense. I'm just curious. It will not affect the cultivation and growth of the monkey orchid. Xuan glanced at the monkey orchid with a cold expression, and then went back to the wooden house with Yanping to take a rest. Why did the expression change? Is it related to my use of the spirit rain technique in the breeding of alien insects? If it is related, why does it still show an angry expression after being nourished by the spirit rain technique? Xuan sat on the chair, looking through the window at the monkey orchids with different expressions in the spiritual field, and fell into deep thought. He felt that the change of expression must involve certain factors, but it has not been discovered by the cultivators yet. All things have spirits. Ordinary plants seen in daily life will have various habits, let alone spiritual plants. Adding a spirit means that the level of life has been improved, and it is reasonable to have various strange expressions. Through the control of the real-time status of the many spiritual plants he planted before, Xuan noticed that many of them had a hint of spirituality, especially the higher the grade of the spiritual plants, the stronger the spirituality. He was therefore more certain that this second grade monkey orchid was also like this, and the change in expression was not random, but had a hidden meaning. It seems I have to find a chance to dig out a monkey orchid and try it out. He couldn't help but have this thought in his mind. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109. The reaction arc is too long. After completing the cultivation work for half a day, Xuan waited outside the valley for a while before he shot a spiritual crane passing by the valley. He spent a spiritual stone and returned to his cave. As soon as he pushed the door open, a black light flashed through the crack of the door. Entering the yard, the cloud-stepping lynx sat elegantly on a stone, staring at him coldly with its green eyes. Xuan couldn't help laughing and walked up to pull the two tufts of hair on the tip of the cloud-stepping lynx's ears, causing a cry that was so painful that it was clamped into the bones. The grass puppet was still tirelessly patrolling the spiritual field. Xuan recalled that he seemed to have not fed spiritual stones for a long time, and he couldn't help but feel a little sorry in his heart. He took out a piece of broken spirit and stuffed it into the huge grass tumor of the grass puppet. In the spiritual spring pool, 4 iron-clawed crabs hid under the strange stone, and a pair of blue-black claws like big knives kept trying to clamp the boulder off. Nourished by the spiritual spring water with more spiritual power in the cave, Xuan felt that these young iron crabs were much more lively than before. He had no time to rest and inspected the spiritual field. He watered the King Mio spiritual tea with spiritual spring water, sprinkled fine iron ore around the copper bone bamboo, nourished the Jio vine with the blood of the green water python, carefully cultivated the Xuan iron luo fruit after finding it, guided the changes in the lines on the liaguan wood, and also the blood jade ginseng, the spiritual firefly grass, the yin hui. After checking all the spiritual plants, half a day had passed. Although it was quite busy, Xuan enjoyed it. The spiritual plants in the spiritual field of the cave involved white light ball rewards, which must not be abandoned. The task of cultivating monkey orchids can get sword seals as task rewards, and can be used to exchange sword seals for rare spiritual seeds later, so it is also extremely important. With the light ball rewards and rare spiritual seeds as expectations, Xuan felt that it didn't matter if he was busy. The next day, he roughly checked the growth status of the spiritual plants in the spiritual field of the cave, and went to the valley without stopping. "Junior brother Lu, haven't you fed all the monkey orchids yet?" Yang Ping asked as he passed by Xuan, after he finished his work. "Yes, senior brother Yan, today is a little slower than yesterday," Xuan said with a smile. When Yan Ping entered the house, his spiritual sense swept across the spiritual field, and came to a remote corner. The spiritual power surged quietly, and the earth attracting technique was used. The spiritual soil near the rhizome of monkey orchid loosened instantly, and he pulled it out with a light pull. Then, it was quickly planted in the spiritual soil, and the earth attracting technique controlled the spiritual soil to tightly surround the rhizome of the monkey orchid. A thought came to his mind. Monkey orchid, a second-grade spiritual plant, can be used to refine some elixirs that enhance spiritual power after maturity. It likes to eat strange insects, and the expression of the petals will change with its own state. Today's insects are really delicious. Absolutely. Xuan looked at the center of the petals in front of him, which maintained an indifferent expression, with a question mark on his face. Is this the state you show when you think the food is delicious? He learned from the monkey orchid's immediate state that it was extremely satisfied, but its expression showed a strong indifference. The actual performance was too different from its immediate state. Since it was not good to stay in the spiritual field for too long, Xuan returned to the wooden house with doubts. After resting for half an hour, he came to the spiritual field and planned to perform a round of spiritual rain. When passing by the spiritual plant he dug out, he found that the expression in the petals of the monkey orchid had changed significantly from before. From the previous indifference to the current smiling expression. There is indeed a change, but will this change be related to the immediate state just now? Xuan thought to himself, while performing the spiritual rain absent-mindedly. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed through his mind. Is it normal for it to change? It's just that, because it's a spiritual plant, it can't react instantly like a cultivator or a spiritual beast. In other words, the reaction arc is too long. The more Xuan thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible. Although the monkey-faced orchid showed a very human expression, it was just a spiritual plant after all. It couldn't express its mood instantly with facial expressions like a cultivator or a spiritual beast. This may also explain why the previous cultivators couldn't find a better way to cultivate the monkey-faced orchid. They may have also done experiments to make different reactions based on the monkey-faced orchid's expressions. But this experiment went astray from the beginning. The current expression of the monkey-faced orchid either shows the state of the previous stage. In this case, it is naturally ineffective to adjust the cultivation method according to the expression. Or after a period of brewing, the monkey-faced orchid's expression is consistent with its current state, and it can be cultivated. It takes a certain amount of time to feed back the cultivation effect, causing the cultivator to make a wrong judgment. With this conjecture, Xuan kept an eye on the changes in the monkey-faced orchid's expression at each stage when performing the spiritual rain technique and raising alien insects. Knowing the principle, there is no need to dig up the monkey orchid and replant it. After a few days, he summed up a general rule. There are two main factors that can affect the monkey orchid, which happen to be the two methods of cultivating them. Among them, the influence of the spiritual rain technique is not very large. After performing the spiritual rain technique, most monkey orchids will show a smile or cold expression after about an hour. When raising alien insects, the impact on monkey orchids is the greatest. Depending on the type of alien insects, the petals of monkey orchids will show various exaggerated expressions after about half an hour. Xuan specially selected various types of alien insects to raise the monkey orchid that he had pulled out. He found that, although the alien insects have more or less nourishing effects on the monkey orchid, due to different tastes, its expression changes in various ways. When eating alien insects that taste ordinary or even bad, the petals will show expressions such as anger, sadness, and coldness, which will affect the growth of the monkey orchid. In this way, we can understand the effects of the spirit rain technique and the alien insects on the monkey-faced orchid, based on its delayed expression, and make subtle adjustments. In another sense, it can also be regarded as fine cultivation, but this kind of cultivation can be explored and summarized by oneself, provided that the mystery of delayed expression change is discovered. Xuan secretly sighed in his heart. The next step is to further confirm this discovery, and then make a fortune from it. The mystery hidden in the monkey-faced orchid's expression is not of great value to him. He did not want to keep this discovery in his heart and digest it slowly, but planned to tell others and make a fortune. Xuan first thought of the Sinan Hall, but the Sinan Hall did not directly cultivate spiritual plants, and he did not know any powerful cultivators in it. Moreover, if he bypassed the foundation building cultivator behind the monkey-faced orchid spiritual field, he might be unhappy. Planting a large number of monkey-faced orchids means that they are of great value to him. Xuan considered again and again, and decided to tell the foundation building cultivator behind the monkey-faced orchid through Sister Yao. Of course, he had to prove that his discovery was feasible and effective first. Chapter 110 I will laugh even if I die. When Xuan was taking care of and cultivating the monkey orchid, he specially selected 6 plants, secretly numbered them, and used different spirit insects to feed the 6 monkey orchids, and recorded their delayed changes in expression, constantly summarizing the rules. 3 days later, the 6 monkey orchids all kept smiling or laughing all day long under his adjustment of the cultivation method. I serve you very comfortably. Xuan sighed and decided to tell his discovery to senior sister Yao. The beautiful woman lived alone in a small courtyard, with 3 elegant wooden houses and a small garden with exotic flowers and plants. Senior sister Yao, are you there? I need your help. Xuan knocked on the door. Junior brother Lu, please come in. What's the matter? The beautiful woman walked out of the house and asked with a smile. In the process of growing monkey orchids, I accidentally discovered something that is very likely to slightly improve the quality of monkey orchids, so I came here to report to you, senior sister. Really? What did you find? A trace of curiosity flashed in the eyes of the beautiful woman, half believing and half doubting. I have observed and summarized for a period of time, and found that the expression in the petals of the monkey orchid is closely related to its own state. If we can adjust the cultivation method according to its expression, and try to meet its needs, we can improve the quality of the spiritual plant. Xuan said in a deep voice. The spiritual plant master who planted the monkey orchid before had this inference, but in the end he still didn't find any mystery, so he adopted the conventional cultivation method, and ignored those strange expressions. Junior brother Lu, can you tell me in detail what secrets are hidden in the expression? Xuan frowned and pretended to ponder. If your method is indeed feasible and effective, then I will report it to the foundation building uncle behind the medicine garden. The beautiful woman seemed to see the worry in Xuan's heart, and promised Xuan with a smile. If the quality of many second-grade monkey orchids in the medicine garden can be improved, Xuan will certainly be rewarded when she reports it to the foundation building uncle. As the manager of the medicine garden, she also has a lot of credit. Therefore, there is no need to monopolize Xuan's cultivation method. Sister Yao, you are too polite. I'm just organizing my words. The secret hidden in it is very simple. The expression of the monkey-faced orchid has a very long delay, so it is easy to mislead the spiritual plant master who cultivates it. There are two main factors that affect the change of expression. The most important is the taste of the spiritual insect. The difference in taste will make the monkey-faced orchid react with expression after half an hour. The other factor is the spiritual rain technique. The amount of spiritual rain will slightly affect the expression in the petals of the monkey-faced orchid about an hour later. As long as you observe and find out the rules, you can keep the monkey-faced orchid in a state of satisfaction, thereby improving the quality of the plant. I see. The beautiful woman nodded continuously, suddenly realizing that the mystery hidden in the expression is actually very simple. But if Lu Xuan hadn't pointed it out, I don't know when I would have discovered the secret. It seems that junior brother Lu does have a very good talent in cultivating spiritual plants. She couldn't help but sigh. Starting tomorrow, I will cultivate the monkey-faced orchid in the spiritual field according to the method you said, junior brother Lu. I believe that junior brother's discovery will definitely bring me unexpected surprises. The beautiful woman made a decision quickly. Asterisk asterisk I don't agree. Monkey orchid is a second-grade spiritual plant, valuable and precious, and there are so many of them. How can the cultivation method be changed as a joke? Just cultivate it in the original way. I firmly disagree with easy changes. Outside the wooden house, Yanping, who looked ordinary, blushed and said excitedly, after learning that all the monkey orchids in the spiritual field had to adjust the cultivation methods, his reaction was extremely intense, beyond Lu Xuan's imagination. Senior brother Yan, I have observed for a while, and I can basically confirm that the expression of the monkey orchid petals is closely related to its own state. As long as it is cultivated according to the rules I have summarized, the quality of the monkey orchid when it matures can be improved. Lu Xuan persuaded gently. He originally thought that, after persuading senior sister Yao, the road ahead would be smooth, but he didn't expect to encounter Yanping, a stumbling block halfway. Junior brother Lu, there are so many spiritual plant masters in the Xianjian sect, and many of them have planted monkey orchids, and there are even uncles who have built foundations. They didn't notice the mystery in the monkey orchid's expression, but it was discovered by you, an outer disciple who has just joined the sect. Are you too confident? I have been planting these monkey orchids for so long, and you came in and said that you want to change their cultivation methods. If there are any problems, can you afford it? If the uncle who has built foundations blames you? Yanping's chest rose and fell violently, showing the strong fluctuations in his heart. Lu Xuan was silent. What Yanping said made sense. Although he was absolutely sure that he could improve the quality of monkey orchids, it seemed a little unbelievable to Yanping. If the change was indeed effective, he would not get much credit, but if there were any mistakes, he would be blamed for planting and cultivating monkey orchids for so long. In silence, the beautiful woman stood up and said, "What junior brother Yan said makes sense. After all, he has spent a lot of time on these monkey orchids. Changing the cultivation method in the market must be approved by him. Junior brother Lu, the method you mentioned is currently in the experimental stage. How about this? There are nearly 100 monkey orchids in the spiritual field. They are directly divided into two halves. One half is cultivated by junior brother Yan in the conventional way, and the other half is cultivated according to your method. What do you think?" Lu Xuan and Yanping looked at each other and nodded in agreement. 2 months passed in a blink of an eye, and the monkey orchids in the spiritual field entered the mature stage. In the past 2 months, Lu Xuan and Yanping each took good care of and cultivated the monkey orchids allocated to them. After that dispute, the relationship between the two became a little distant. They occasionally met and nodded to say hello, but there was not much communication. Lu Xuan didn't care about it and devoted himself to cultivating monkey orchids. After the monkey orchid entered the mature stage, senior sister Yao did not wait for the spiritual plant progress bar to be full before picking it like Lu Xuan did, but directly picked all the monkey orchid petals. The orchids picked from the monkey orchids planted by the two were piled up separately. The pile belonging to Lu Xuan all showed smiling expressions. More than 50 smiling faces squeezed together, but it was a bit weird. You will smile even if you die. It's worth my time to meet every subtle request of yours. Lu Xuan sighed and looked at the petals of the monkey orchid cultivated by Yanping. The expressions were different and the contrast was obvious. You two junior brothers have worked hard during this period. I will deal with and count these 2 piles of mature monkey orchids. Senior sister Yao said with a smile. Lu Xuan and the other nodded. Yanping looked solemn. He had rich experience in planting monkey orchids and could naturally see the subtle differences between the quality of the two. Junior brother Yan, pick 55 mature monkey orchids, of which 38 are of ordinary quality, 14 are of good quality, and the remaining 3 are of superior quality. Yanping looked calm. The quality of these monkey orchids was not much different from what he expected. But when he saw the more than 50 monkey orchids planted by Lu Xuan, he felt mixed emotions and could not calm down. Chapter 111, King Myrolling Tea is mature dust reducing pill. Next is the monkey orchid cultivated by junior brother Lu. There are a total of 53 plants, of which 19 are of ordinary quality, 25 are of good quality, and 9 are of superior quality. Junior brother Lu, you really gave me a big surprise. After the beautiful woman finished counting, her smile became even bigger. When Lu Xuan suggested to her that she change the way of planting monkey orchids, although she believed in Lu Xuan, she was a little bit uneasy. It was not until the results came out today that this uneasiness completely disappeared and was replaced by full of surprises. Lu Xuan's method can really improve the quality of monkey orchids. She has been managing the medicine garden for a long time, and she knows that the monkey orchids planted by Yanping are the normal results, and Lu Xuan has raised the average quality of monkey orchids to a higher level. Whether it is good quality or superior quality, the number has increased significantly. The improvement of the quality of spiritual plants also means that when refining pills, the probability of success and the quality of pills can be slightly increased. More importantly, this is only the result of changing the method of cultivating monkey orchids in a short period of time. If the method of Lu Xuan is followed from the beginning, when the monkey orchids mature, wouldn't it be possible to get a large number of good, superior or even perfect spiritual plants? If she can really do it, she will definitely be proud of her uncle who is building the foundation. Junior brother Lu, I will report your method to my uncle truthfully. You have made such a great contribution to improving the quality of monkey orchids. The uncle will definitely reward you. How about I apply for a sword seal for you? In this way, whether it is a skill, a magic weapon, or a pill, you can choose freely. Thank you very much, senior sister. Lu Xuan was very eager to get the sword seal as a reward, and he responded hurriedly. Yanping, who was standing aside, turned pale and blue after the comparison results came out. He hesitated again and again, and walked in front of Lu Xuan. Junior brother Lu, I was too selfish, single-minded, and conservative before. I didn't have the courage of my junior brother. I hope my junior brother can understand and forgive me. The effect of Lu Xuan's change in cultivation method was so obvious that he naturally couldn't ignore the facts and insist on his previous views. He might lose the qualification to grow monkey orchids in the future. Yanping regretted it in his heart and came to apologize to Lu Xuan with a frown. Senior brother Yan, you are serious. Your previous thoughts can't be said to be right or wrong. If you want to know anything about new cultivation methods in the future, you can come and discuss it with me, Lu Xuan said with a gentle smile. Since Yanping lowered his posture, he didn't need to take it to heart. As for the method, it has been spread anyway, and one more person is not much. Junior brother Lu is broad-minded, and I admire you. Yanping clasped his fists and said from the bottom of his heart. In the cave, on the table in front of Lu Xuan, there were 90 special coins. The currency was made of unknown materials. It was shaped like a small sword and was extremely hard. It was the sword seal circulated in the Xianjian sect. With this small sword-like currency, you can exchange for various things in the sect. After completing the task, Lu Xuan went to the General Affairs Hall to receive the task reward and unexpectedly received 90 sword seals. 30 of them were the reward for the task of cultivating monkey orchids, and the other 60 were obtained by senior sister Yao in front of his uncle, who was in charge of building the foundation, as a reward for his improvement of the method of cultivating monkey orchids. Normally, it takes 3 months to get 30 sword seals to cultivate monkey orchids, but with that improved method, you can get 60 sword seals at once. A smile appeared on his face, and with a single hand, 90 small swords were put into the storage bag. He came to the spiritual field and carefully examined the many spiritual plants in the spiritual field. 3 months later, the spiritual plants of different grades have grown a lot. Some of the 200 spiritual fireflies that were planted have entered the fully mature stage. Xuan looked at them one by one, concentrating his mind. As long as he saw the progress bar below the spiritual fireflies was full, he would pick them. Finally, 28 mature firefly grasses were obtained, of which 8 were of good quality, 14 were of superior quality, and 6 were of perfect quality. As expected of a sect, due to the task of cultivating monkey orchids, the care of firefly grasses was not as meticulous as before, but after they matured, the perfect quality firefly grasses obtained were much more than before. 6 of the 28 were of perfect quality. This is the influence of the spiritual field and the spiritual soil, and the spiritual energy. Xuan once again felt that it was an extremely correct choice to enter the sect. 28 white light balls appeared in the spiritual soil, flickering slightly, attracting Xuan to pick them up. Xuan touched them one by one, and the light balls turned into countless light points, pouring into his body, and a thought flashed through his mind. Harvest 1 firefly grass, and gain 6 months of cultivation. Right square bracket asterisk 5. Harvest 1 firefly grass, and gain 9 months of cultivation. Right square bracket asterisk 5. 10 of the firefly grasses brought cultivation rewards, and waves of spiritual power surged in Xuan's body, madly impacting his tendons, veins, and anshan. He stood there, trying to control his spiritual power to regain his composure. Although I have entered the sect, the purity and concentration of spiritual power is incomparable to that in the market, and there is also a top-notch technique like small 5-element gong, but it still cannot compare to the white light ball that contains the reward of cultivation. Xuan secretly sighed. The more than 20 spiritual fireflies he picked this time brought him more than 6 years of cultivation, which was many times more than the cultivation he had in the sect during this period. His original cultivation level of the 8th level of key training increased a lot. In addition, the remaining white light ball opened 7 talismans, 5 first grade talismans, and 2 second grade sword energy talismans. There are also 5 first grade PON pills, 2 earth inducing technique experience packs, 1 Zhengjin sword technique experience pack, and 3 drops of grass spirit liquid. Seeing that the grass puppet had been working hard during this period, Xuan stuffed a drop of grass spirit liquid that exuded a strong plant spirit into his huge grass tumor. Give it a green hat to show gratitude. Although the remaining 170 or so spiritual fireflies have entered the mature stage, Xuan intends to pick them after they are fully mature in order not to affect their quality. He observed the status of many spiritual plants in the spiritual field, and found a King Mio spiritual tea plant with a tender green tea leaf that could be picked. Xuan slowed down his breathing and carefully picked the tea leaf. The tea leaves in his hand were extremely tender green and fragrant. When he put them to his nose and smelled them, it seemed as if a clear and spiritual air entered the 7 orifices, making people suddenly sober. King Mio spiritual tea is a 2nd grade spiritual plant. The tea leaves after picking have the effect of clearing the mind and making people wise. They can resist the invasion and pollution of evil spirits to a certain extent. The tea leaves can be taken directly, can be fried into dry tea leaves and brewed into spiritual tea, and can also be used as materials for refining certain elixirs. A white light ball appeared at the original position of the picked tea leaves. Xuan touched it lightly, and the light ball turned into countless tiny light points and poured into his body. A pill exuding a clear and spiritual breath appeared in his palm. Dust reducing pill, a 3rd grade pill, can remove impurities from the body and reduce the risk of alienation. Right square bracket. Chapter 112, Glazed Bone Tempering Method. The 3rd grade elixir, the dust reducing elixir, can remove impurities from the body of a cultivator and reduce the risk of alienation. This kind of elixir is relatively rare. Xuan looked at the fragrant round elixir in his palm and muttered to himself. During the cultivation process, if a cultivator absorbs and refines spiritual energy in the spiritual environment, formed by low-level spiritual veins, there may be fine impurities remaining in the body. After long-term accumulation, it will have some impact on the cultivator's breakthrough. In addition, if you stay in the wild for a long time and come into contact with turbid spiritual energy, the accumulation of impurities will be accelerated. In this case, if you encounter evil spirits invading your body, it will be easier to cause the cultivator to alienate into a weird monster. Xuan encountered a key training cultivator who was alienated in the casual cultivator market in Linyangfang City a long time ago. He suddenly attacked other cultivators indiscriminately. Now, with this third grade dust reducing elixir made by King Miaolingcha, the risk of alienation can be reduced. He did not intend to sell or exchange this dust reducing elixir for other things and swallowed it in one gulp. After a few breaths, a clear and spiritual air rose from his abdomen and quickly spread to Xuan's limbs. Suddenly, he felt his body lighten, as if some invisible things were dispelled from his body. In addition, he also felt that his mind was clearer than ever before. Information flashed through his mind quickly, and all the past events were vivid in his mind. This is the effect of the dust removing pill to clear the mind and make him wise. Xuan recalled the small 5-element gong and cloud ascension technique he had obtained from the sutra library. He understood a lot of the parts that he had previously understood superficially. I love to practice, and practice makes me progress. Under the effect of the third grade dust removing pill, Xuan, who was at the 8th level of key training, had the illusion of becoming a genius. He felt that this state seemed to last for a while, so he left the cave, rented a spiritual crane, and came to the sutra library again. In the sutra library, the white-haired and childlike monk from last time was not seen. Instead, he was replaced by an ordinary-looking high-level key training monk. Xuan spent 3 sword seals to rent 3 thick jade books from the sutra library. The jade book is not a cultivation method or a powerful secret technique, but just some common sense about spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. He has a weak foundation, and has come to this point purely by relying on the grasp of the real-time status of the spiritual plants and the feedback of the white light ball. Since he has entered the sect, and has such a good opportunity, he must seize it, and make up for the relevant common sense. Back in the cave, while he is still in his state, he opened the jade book. A lifelike phantom of a spiritual plant appeared in front of him. The phantom was so realistic that even the leaves of the spiritual plant could be seen clearly. Next to the phantom of the spiritual plant, there was a line of small characters, which detailed the types and grades of the spiritual plants. Xuan memorized the phantom and the small characters, and turned to the second page. The 3 jade books all recorded knowledge about spiritual plants and spiritual beasts. The types, grades, common origins of spiritual plants and spiritual beasts, the growth environment of spiritual plants, picking methods, storage methods, and solutions to common pests. Various strange habits of spiritual beasts, breeding methods, treatment methods, etc. Each time a page is turned, a virtual image that seems to be real appears. This 3-dimensional method can help cultivators remember better and increase the difficulty of knowledge transmission. In the next few days, Xuan stayed in the cave, cultivating spiritual plants, raising cloud-stepping lynxes and iron-clawed crabs, and spent the rest of his time flipping through the 3 jade books. While inspecting the spiritual field, with his mind focused, another batch of spiritual fireflies entered the fully mature stage. A total of 26 spiritual fireflies matured, of which 7 were of perfect quality, and the others were of good or superior quality, with more superior ones. After absorbing the white light balls one by one, they brought nearly 6 years of cultivation, which made Xuan's cultivation rise again by a large margin, and he was only a step away from breaking through to the 9th level of key training. The other light balls mainly brought elixirs and talismans, mainly 1st grade, and there were also 2 2nd grade talismans. In addition, there were 2 drops of grass spirit essence liquid and an experience pack of Pio and Dandan recipe. The grass spirit essence liquid continued to be stuffed into the grass puppet, allowing it to absorb the rich grass spirit inside. After absorbing the pill experience package, Xuan's understanding of refining Pio and Dan deepened, and he even felt eager to find an opportunity to get a high quality pill furnace and try it out. In addition to the more than 20 Lingyian grasses that matured, there were also 3 leaves of tender green tea leaves from the 3 King Miaolingcha tea trees that could be picked. Lu Xuan carefully picked the King Miaolingcha tea leaves and put them in a special jade box, trying to preserve the spiritual power of the tea leaves. Of the 3 leaves, 2 were of the same quality as the first one he picked, both of good quality, and 1 was of top quality. 3 white light balls appeared at the location where the tea leaves were picked. Lu Xuan picked them up gently, and the light balls turned into a galaxy of light spots and poured into his body. Harvest a piece of King Miaolingcha tea leaves and obtain a 3rd grade dust reducing pill. A pill with a fragrant aroma appeared in his palm. Harvest a piece of King Miaolingcha tea leaves and obtain a 3rd grade talisman purifying spirit talisman. A talisman like white jade appeared in Lu Xuan's hand. There were countless almost transparent lines on the talisman, emitting a holy and pure breath or thought flashed through his mind. Purifying spirit talisman, a 3rd grade talisman, can detect evil spirits in a certain area around him when used, and has a certain purification effect on strange level evil spirits. Strange level evil spirits, that is equivalent to a foundation building cultivator. It is worthy of being a 3rd grade talisman. It is much more powerful than the 1st grade evil removing talisman with similar effects. Lu Xuan sighed. After planting so many firefly grasses, he opened a lot of 1st grade evil removing talismans from the white light ball. After using them, he can sense the breath of evil spirits around him, but the damage caused to evil spirits is not great, not to mention that it can purify strange level evil spirits. Lu Xuan put the first 3rd grade talisman he got into the storage bag and turned to look at the last white light ball. This light ball was left by the top quality piece, so he was looking forward to it even more. With great expectations, Lu Xuan reached out and gently tapped the white light ball floating on the old root of the tea tree. The light ball turned into countless light spots and instantly poured into Lu Xuan's body. Then, a lot of information appeared in his mind. Harvest a piece of King Miaolingcha tea and obtain the 3rd grade skill Glass Bone Forging Method Part 1. Glass Bone Forging Method, a 3rd grade skill. After practicing it, it can temper and forge the bones of the monks, making them clear and transparent, and the hardness is comparable to that of a 3rd grade magic weapon. A 3rd grade body refining skill, worthy of a 2nd grade spiritual plant of superior quality. Lu Xuan was pleasantly surprised. He didn't expect that a 2nd grade King Miaolingcha tea leaf would produce a 3rd grade body refining skill. But, what the hell is the upper part? He was puzzled. After thoroughly digesting the information that appeared in his mind, he understood it in his heart. The upper part of Glass Bone Forging Method can only be practiced to the key training stage. If you want to go further, you have to open the lower part of the skill. Chapter 113, Imitation Dragon Binding Ring. It's somewhat similar to the silver blade artifact I got before, but I don't know how many light balls are needed to open the lower part of the Glass Bone Forging Method. As early as in the North District courtyard, after the ungraded Eclipse Moon fruit matured, Lu Xuan occasionally received the silver blade fragments as a reward. It took a long time to collect a dozen fragments to form a complete silver blade artifact. Now the upper part of the Glass Bone Forging Method has appeared. You only need to open the lower part of the foundation building stage to collect it. Compared with the silver blade, the difficulty is much smaller. On the 3 intertwined King Miaolingcha tea trees, each has 6 or 7 leaves of tender green spiritual tea leaves. After picking 4 leaves, Lu Xuan counted and found that there were still 15 leaves left. 15 leaves of King Miaolingcha tea leaves are enough to open the lower part of the Glass Bone Forging Method. It's a sure thing. Lu Xuan was full of confidence. After resting for 3 days, he came to the General Affairs Hall again, intending to find a suitable task to earn sword seals. Now he has a total of 87 sword seals on his body, most of which are obtained by improving the monkey orchid planting method. Last time when Lu Xuan bought spiritual plants and seeds in Sinner Hall, he roughly asked about the number of sword seals required for rare spiritual plants and seeds. The 2nd grade rare and rare spiritual seeds are about 20 sword seals. As for the 3rd grade spiritual seeds and spiritual plant seedlings, depending on the rarity and efficacy of the spiritual plants, they range from dozens to 100 sword seals, and a minimum is no less than 50 sword seals. There are already several second grade spiritual plants planted in the cave spiritual field. In addition, his cultivation is about to break through to the 9th level of key training, so Lu Xuan has no intention of planting a small number of second grade spiritual plants. He plans to exchange for a 3rd grade rare spiritual plant seedling or spiritual seed. When it matures, he has a great chance of breaking through to the initial stage of foundation building, and the reward is just right. If he exchanges for 2 or 3 second grade spiritual seeds, after about a year of maturity, it is possible to open a treasure for the key training stage, which will seem a bit tasteless. The general affairs hall is still very lively. 20 or 30 disciples of the Xianjian sect are waiting in front of the huge light curtain, staring closely at the task information that appears on the light curtain. Lu Xuan noticed that the most popular tasks were to go to a secret realm, to pick spiritual medicine or hunt specific monsters. The rewards for such tasks were relatively high, and after entering the secret realm, there might be other opportunities to get spiritual medicine, monster materials, and even treasures such as elixirs, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. In addition, there were also many tasks for investigating and clearing evil spirits, followed by the 4 major cultivation skills of elixirs, weapons, arrays, and talismans. The requirements for such tasks were varied, and it was difficult for ordinary cultivators to meet the task conditions. Tasks related to spiritual plants and spiritual beasts were not very common, and the rewards were the lowest, but this kind of task was the most suitable for Lu Xuan. After planting spiritual plants and raising spiritual beasts, he could master their specific status, which made it easy for him to complete the task or even exceed the task. This was the case with the monkey-faced orchid before, and he also received a sword seal reward that was twice the task reward. He stood silently in the corner, his eyes swept through the constantly updated task content, and finally chose a spiritual beast raising task. The task of raising young dragons requires raising young dragons, chilling an anaconda in Qian Long Lake twice a day. It requires a firm mind, and the reward for the task is 10 sword seals per month. Lu Xuan's spiritual consciousness touched the task content on the light ball. Suddenly, a thought came into his mind, and the specific information about the task emerged one by one. Among the tasks related to spiritual beasts, the raising type tasks are the simplest for Lu Xuan. After all, he can understand the real-time status of spiritual beasts by raising them, which just fits the task content. In addition, he also has a little selfishness. The blood of the blue water python brought from the market is getting less and less. Lu Xuan wants to take this opportunity to see if he can borrow some demon blood from the many dragons, chilling and anaconda in Qian Long Lake. Half an hour later, Lu Xuan arrived at the task destination with a spiritual crane. The spiritual crane is timid and dare not fly directly over the lake, so it takes a lot of detours. Lu Xuan did not argue with it, because the price remained unchanged. He got off the back of the spiritual crane and came to a few stone houses. The bloody smell of various monsters came from the stone house, which made Lu Xuan, who was always kind to others, a little uncomfortable. After entering the stone house, he introduced his purpose, and soon a Qian perfect cultivator took him around to familiarize himself with Qian Long Lake. Junior brother Lu, Qian Long Lake stretches for hundreds of miles, and there are many dragons and pythons raised in it, including 3rd grade or even higher grade dragon monsters. The Qian perfect cultivator was named Xuan Yuan, and he looked mature and steady. Of course, there are powerful restrictions in the habitat of the 3rd grade dragons, and they are raised by the foundation building uncle, so we key training disciples cannot touch them. We are mainly responsible for the juvenile dragon monsters, mainly the 2nd grade ones, and various pythons and anacondas, both the 1st grade and 2nd grade ones. Some of them are rare species, collected by the sect uncle, and raised in Qian Long Lake. The dragon monsters are full of treasures. Dragon skin, dragon scales, dragon bones, dragon blood, etc. are all widely used, so we have to serve them carefully and not neglect them at all. Xuan Yuan introduced the situation to Lu Xuan in detail. Lu Xuan nodded continuously. Brother Xuan, what do you need to pay attention to when raising them? There are mainly 2 aspects. One is to feed those young dragons that belong to you. Don't worry about food. There will be a large amount of fresh monster flesh and blood provided every day. During the raising process, those beasts will scramble for it and even cause fights. You must pay more attention to this. In addition, the dragon monsters are known for their ferocity. Sometimes they will go wild and try to attack the monks who raise them. But that is just a facade. In fact, they can't threaten us at all. There are restrictions above the lake, and there are also magic weapons to control them. Xuan smiled and raised his arm. A golden bracelet slowly rotated on his wrist, and there seemed to be a dragon-shaped phantom swimming on the bracelet. The dragon binding ring is said to be able to bind a real dragon. Of course, the one on my wrist is a replica of a replica, and it is far different from the real thing. The one in your hand is a third-grade magic weapon, which can easily control second-grade dragon cubs and python monsters. I will give you one later, Junior Brother Lu, but it can only be used within the mission period and within the boundaries of Qianlan Lake. It cannot be taken out of Qianlan Lake. When you leave, you need to return the replica dragon binding ring. Junior Brother Lu, remember not to be greedy for this third-grade magic weapon, otherwise, you will regret it. This happened many years ago. A key training disciple was greedy and wanted to swallow the replica dragon binding ring. In the end, he was caught by the uncle of the discipline hall and was severely punished. Xuan said with a smile. Xuan nodded to show that he understood. Although he had been immersed in the 5 pillars dragon binding technique for many years, he would be helpless in the face of a large number of dragon monsters. It would be best to have a powerful magic weapon to control them. Chapter 114. Ice Sky with its own followers. The edge of Qianlan Lake. Xuan stood on a wooden platform that was 20 feet high, looking at the lake. As if they sensed that it was time for dinner, the figures of dragons and anacondas appeared from time to time on the lake. Xuan took out 3 huge wooden barrels from his storage bag, which were filled with pieces of monster meat. The monster meat was relatively fresh, full of spiritual energy, and there were blood on the meat. The dragons and giant pythons swimming below smelled the smell of monster meat, and their speed became faster and faster, and more violent. Seeing this, Xuan smiled slightly, picked up a wooden barrel, and poured all the monster meat in it into the lake. Suddenly, huge waves rose on the lake, and dragons and giant pythons of various shapes rushed out, scrambling to grab the monster meat that had not yet fallen. The lake water became turbid, and dozens of dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas scrambled for the monster meat and attacked the surrounding dragons and monsters, trying to prevent them from grabbing the food. Seeing this, Xuan couldn't help but think of the scene of feeding the koi in the small lake. It was also a fight for food, but the reaction caused by the dragon and python was hundreds or thousands of times greater. When many dragon monsters devoured the flesh and blood of monsters, his mind was focused on its body, and he quickly got all kinds of information about the dragon below. Two-headed dragon, second-grade monster, fierce and violent, likes to eat bad monster meat. A dragon with 2 heads, covered with black scales, showing its fierce appearance. Red-armored python, first-grade alien monster, extremely strong defense, likes to eat the flesh and blood of the same monster. A giant python with a body tightly wrapped in red scales from head to toe swam in the lake. Xuan noticed that it often stayed next to the dragons fighting each other. When a dragon was injured and its flesh and blood fell, it would wait for an opportunity to devour the fresh dragon meat. Ice Sky, a second-grade monster beast, has a weak ancient Kai dragon bloodline and likes to eat the flesh and blood of ice-attributed monster beasts. In the center of the lake, a snow-white Kai dragon was quietly circling, emitting a faint chill, and the lake water around its body was frozen into ice. Around it, there was a blank area surrounded by several dragons. No dragon entered this area to compete for monster meat, so the snow-white Kai dragon enjoyed its food leisurely, in sharp contrast to the violent movement next to it. Soon, the large bucket of monster meat thrown down was devoured by many dragons. They each guarded an area, swimming slowly, as if waiting for the second batch of flesh and blood to fall. Xuan picked up a huge wooden barrel and poured it down. Dozens of dragons jumped up. There was nothing in the air. Sorry, I got the wrong one. Xuan looked at the many dragon monster beasts in the lake who seemed irritable because they did not eat flesh and blood, and the corners of his mouth rose. He picked up a large bucket filled with monster meat, and a large amount of monster flesh and blood fell down. The ferocious two-headed dragon jumped up, and with its remaining momentum, It actually rushed directly towards Lu Xuan on the high platform. Lu Xuan's expression turned cold, and the golden bracelet on his wrist glowed. A dragon roar sounded, and a small dragon-shaped phantom shot out and drilled into the neck of the two-headed dragon. Suddenly, under the two heads of the two-headed dragon, a golden ring that changed from real to virtual suddenly appeared, tightly binding the figure of the two-headed dragon. The tail of the two-headed dragon moved weakly in the air for a few times, and fell into the lake with a snap, stirring up huge waves. After being tricked by Lu Xuan, the two-headed dragon instantly calmed down and turned to compete with other dragon monsters for the monster meat that fell on the lake. It is indeed a third-grade magical weapon that naturally restrains dragon monsters. It can easily deal with it without any effort. Lu Xuan sighed in his heart. Dragons are considered to be relatively powerful among monsters of the same grade. This two-headed dragon has a special bloodline and is not easy to mess with. I didn't expect that it would be controlled so easily by this replica of the dragon binding ring. He carefully observed the behavior of the many dragon monsters below. With the monster meat drop point as the center, at the outermost periphery, there are more than 10 giant pythons and anacondas far away on the lake, not joining the ranks of scrambling for monster meat. Only when you are lucky enough to have a few pieces of monster meat thrown in the outer area, or when the dragon monsters in the central area have finished enjoying it, they can eat 1 or 2 monster meat residues. Most of these giant pythons and anacondas are first-grade monsters with low strength. If you go to scramble, you may be at risk of being killed by a powerful dragon, so you can only find a safe area. A little further inside, there were many different kinds of pythons and anacondas, mainly of the second grade, very ferocious, with many scars on their bodies. With their ferocity in good position, they were able to snatch a lot of monster meat. As for the central area, it was occupied by several of the most powerful dragon monsters, including some with special bloodlines similar to the two-headed dragon. The ice dragon was prominently in the list, surrounded by several second-grade dragon monsters, occupying the most central position, and even had time to choose monster meat. The distribution of monster meat is extremely uneven, some die of drought and some die of flood. This ice dragon with its own little brother is at the top layer, and a few different kinds of dragons such as the two-headed dragon are at the upper layer. The more ferocious second-grade giant pythons and anacondas are in the middle layer, and there are also the weakest peripheral areas. This is completely not conducive to the collective growth of dragons. Lu Xuan sighed. In his eyes, this way of feeding is extremely unscientific. So much monster meat was thrown down, and most of it was snatched away by the dragon monsters in the central area, and those in the peripheral areas could not even eat enough. Although the Ice Kai and double-headed Gyro in the center area have grabbed a lot of monster meat, most of the flesh and blood are not conducive to their own growth, and they can only fill their stomachs. In this way, they cannot maximize the use of the monster meat raised to them. In the eyes of other cultivators, raising dragons is like a competition between cultivators for opportunities, relying on their strength to grab monster meat, so as to upgrade their grades, or evolve their bloodlines. Lu Xuan, however, feels that there is still a lot of room for optimization. As long as these monster meats are used reasonably, not only can the dragon monsters in the center area be improved, but also the giant pythons and anacondas in the outer area will have a lot of opportunities. Suitable monster meat can promote the growth of dragons and giant pythons. The next thing to do is to understand the favorite and most beneficial monster meat of each dragon monster, and then distribute it reasonably. Of course, the first problem to be solved is to make these dragon monsters completely follow their instructions. Lu Xuan thought to himself that the dragon monsters in the center area are strong enough and fierce, and they are difficult to control. He decided to take the route of surrounding the center from the outside and completely control these dozens of dragons bit by bit. Thinking of this, he picked up the last huge wooden barrel, left a small portion of the monster meat, and when the dragons in the center area were fighting for it, he threw it accurately to the giant pythons and anacondas on the periphery. The large amount of monster meat falling down made the giant pythons, who had been eating the blood and flesh residue, a little uncomfortable. They were stunned for a moment, and quickly swallowed the monster meat into their stomachs. Chapter 115 Taming the Dragon. Lu Xuan focused his mind on the giant pythons and anacondas in the outer area. He sensed that, after they had eaten enough monster meat, their physical and mental states were quite good, and he even felt a little joy. A smile appeared on his lips. In the next 2 days, he learned clearly what monster meat the giant pythons and anacondas in the outer area liked, and was suitable for them. When raising them, he specially selected them, and threw them next to the giant pythons and anacondas. This abnormal situation was soon discovered by the second-grade giant pythons and dragons in the inner position. On this day, when Xuan continued to throw monster meat to the outer area, the 3 second-grade giant pythons and anacondas no longer stared at the monster meat falling in the central area, but swam quietly to the periphery. Xuan snorted coldly, and the golden bracelet on his wrist emerged with spiritual light, and the sound of dragon roars sounded. 3 illusory dragon shadows quickly attacked in a triangular shape, tightly binding the 3 second-grade giant pythons and anacondas. He waited until the giant pythons and anacondas in the outer area were full before he drove the golden ring to loosen it. The 3 second-grade giant pythons shook their heads and left the outer area unwillingly. Taking advantage of the gap in the breeding room, Xuan came to the edge of the platform and looked down at the many dragon monsters swimming in the lake. Before feeding, I have something to say. In order to eat well, I suggest you listen to me. After that, I will gradually improve the way I feed you. According to my position allocation, you must stay in my designated area and not go beyond the limit. Among you, whether it is a dragon or a python, as long as you are obedient, I will feed you enough monster flesh and blood. Not only that, I will feed you the type of monster meat you like according to your taste. According to your bloodline ability, physical specificity, etc. I will also provide you with the most suitable monster meat to increase the speed of your strength enhancement, so that you can be promoted to a higher grade dragon. If you are disobedient, I will reduce the amount of food provided to you. If you repeatedly violate my orders, I will punish them severely. Xuan said loudly. The dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas that can stay in Qian Long Lake are naturally smarter than the monsters of the same level. Especially the focus of his speech, the alien dragons headed by Binchi. Xuan believes that they can understand the meaning of his words very well. As for what he could actually do, Xuan ignored it, because he had a way to deal with it anyway. After he finished speaking, he looked at the many dragons and pythons below that were motionless, picked out some monster meat from the bucket, and threw it in the outer area, leaving the ones in the center first. Without the attraction of a large amount of monster flesh and blood in the center, more than 10 of the second-grade giant pythons and anacondas in the inner position turned around and rushed to the outer area. Xuan looked indifferent, and the same number of illusory dragon shadows flew out from the replica of the third-grade dragon binding ring on his wrist, tightly binding the 10 or so giant pythons that disobeyed his orders. If you disobey my order, you will lose your meal of monster meat, he said coldly. The dragon binding ring is a 3rd grade magic weapon, 1 large grade higher than the 2nd grade key training level giant python, and it has a natural restraint on dragon monsters, so even if more than 10 dragon shadows are separated, they can still be well controlled. Next, he fulfilled his promise very well, and the 10 or so 2nd grade giant pythons and anacondas did not eat a piece of monster meat at all. The ice Qian-headed dragons in the central area were still raised in the conventional way, leaving a large amount of monster meat for them to fight for. In this way, 3 days passed. During this period, he rewarded the giant pythons and anacondas that followed his orders with sufficient, delicious, and suitable monster meat. For those who did not follow his orders, he used some means to punish them. Slowly, under this training method, the 2nd grade giant pythons and anacondas in the outer inner position also gradually listened to Xuan's instructions. When he came to feed them, they stayed in place and waited for the monster meat to fall beside them. They soon found that they could eat enough monster meat without fighting or grabbing, and even had the monster species they were particularly concerned about. Therefore, they became more accustomed to Xuan's feeding method. From the outer area, they gradually gathered towards the central area. At the same time, Xuan was constantly reducing the amount of monster meat of the ice Qian-headed dragons in the central area. When the two-headed dragons in the center area wanted to compete for the food of the giant pythons in the inner position, Xuan followed suit and used the control ability of the dragon binding ring replica to bind them tightly. Then, he tamed them, so that they gradually developed a concept in their minds that only those who listened to him could eat enough and delicious monster meat. If they didn't listen, they would not only not be full, but would even be punished. In the most central area, the ice dragons, which had never had to compete for monster meat, finally responded after Lu Xuan kept reducing the amount. On this day, Lu Xuan was raising other dragon monsters, except the ice dragon and several of its younger brothers on the high platform. The younger dragons around the ice dragon tried to snatch the monster meat that fell down again and again, but they were all well controlled by Lu Xuan. After getting nothing, they slowly gave up. Just when Lu Xuan's mind was focused on the bodies of many dragons and pythons, suddenly, he saw a sharp cold light rushing towards him. An ice spear about half a foot long struck like lightning, and the ice dragon on the lake was filled with cold air, and it still maintained an attacking posture. Lu Xuan was calm, without any inner fluctuations. Sure enough, when the ice spear was about to touch the platform, a light shield quietly emerged, and spiritual power gathered. The ice spear pierced the spiritual light shield, and the spiritual light spread out like ripples. The light shield was safe and sound, without any cracks. You are so brave. You actually used your innate magic to attack me. Lu Xuan sneered, looking at the ice dragon below who wanted to hide his body. The dragon roared, and the body of the ice dragon seemed to be frozen, slowing down by half, watching the golden dragon shadow attack. On the white jade neck, a golden ring that changed from real to virtual appeared in an instant. Under Lu Xuan's control, the ring kept rising, and the body of the ice dragon was also lifted up little by little. The situation is too bad. I will punish you not to eat monster meat for 3 days, and hang you here for half a day as a warning. The ice dragon wailed hard, and a trace of begging appeared in its eyes, as if it wanted Lu Xuan to put it down. Lu Xuan was unmoved, and controlled the golden ring to hang it in the air. Seeing their boss like this, several younger dragons under Binkai turned against him. When Lu Xuan raised the monsters afterwards, they all behaved obediently, and followed Lu Xuan's orders. Half a day later, Lu Xuan looked at Binkai, who was much more decadent in the air, and said softly, I just want to ask you one question. Do you obey? Binkai heard this, raised his white jade-like head that was much drier, and nodded gently. Okay, then I'll let you go first. If there is a next time, the punishment will not be so simple. If you are really obedient, I can also find you some ice-attributed monster meat. With your bloodline talent, you will surely be promoted to a 3rd grade Kai dragon soon. Lu Xuan hit him with a stick, and then gave him a candy. Hearing his words, Binkai showed a trace of gratitude in his eyes. Seeing it like this, Lu Xuan released the control of the golden ring on him, and put it back into Kaian Lan Lake. He secretly rejoiced in his heart. The last obstacle was easily solved. These dragons and pythons would listen to his orders in the future, and he would feel much more relaxed. You, stay here. You, and you, stay here. He arranged the dragons and pythons in various positions in the form of a queue according to their size, eating habits, etc. In the future, just come to my place to get food. As long as you listen, I will make sure you are well fed and satisfied. Lu Xuan said with a smile, looking at the dragons and pythons and other monsters neatly arranged below, and he felt a wonderful feeling of turning into a cafeteria food serving uncle. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116, Customized Recipes. Under the high platform, dozens of dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas were neatly arranged on the lake surface. Most of their bodies were buried under the lake surface, with only a small part of their upper bodies sticking out, staring eagerly at the 3 huge wooden barrels in front of Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan glanced at the monster flesh and blood in the barrels, quickly picked up one piece after another, and threw them near the dragons and monsters in the designated area. Although other dragons around were eager to move, and instinctively wanted to fight for the monster meat, after being tamed by Lu Xuan for a period of time, they were able to control their instinctive desires, and stay in the designated area honestly. These dragons knew that, as long as they kept to themselves and stayed in the designated area, they would definitely eat enough delicious monster meat. Once they wanted to fight for it, they would be hungry, and they would most likely be hung in the air by Xuan. The monster meat in the barrels was reduced little by little. Xuan looked at the 3 empty barrels and pondered in silence. Although he could feed the dragons delicious meat or monster meat that could promote their growth and evolution, after taming them by mastering their real-time status, the huge amount of monster meat in the wooden barrel would not be placed according to his ideas, which resulted in either too much or too little monster meat suitable for feeding the dragons, and could not fully satisfy every dragon, python, monster, and finally could only feed them with ordinary monster meat. He was determined to find Xuan, who was in charge of this area of Long Lake, and customize a recipe for the dragons, pythons, etc. that he raised. In a white stone house, Xuan, who had perfected his key training, was talking with 2 high-level key training monks. When he saw Xuan coming in, he smiled and greeted him. "Junior brother Lu, I haven't seen you for a while. Is it going well to feed the dragons? Have those evil beasts caused any trouble to you?" "It's going well. Those dragon monsters are also relatively obedient. I came here this time to ask for help from senior brother Xuan." "Junior brother Lu, please speak," Xuan said with a serious look. "Brother Xuan, I recently found that the monster meat in the wooden barrel was not reasonable when I was raising the dragons. Therefore, I want to customize a recipe for those dragons and monsters. Just provide the monster meat according to the recipe." Puff. As soon as Xuan finished speaking, a tall and thin monk in the stone house couldn't help but sneered. "My junior brother, those dragons are just some evil beasts. If you throw the monster meat in, they will all come to grab it. What's the point of customizing a recipe for them?" the tall and thin monk said to Xuan with a smile. Xuan glared at him sternly, turned around and said in a deep voice, "Brother Lu, although the words of this junior brother are a bit inappropriate, the logic is still correct. You raise those dragons, just throw the monster meat in, and let them fight for it. Customizing a recipe will not only cause trouble to the fellow disciples who deal with the monster meat, but it is also useless, so there is really no need." Xuan showed a trace of surprise on his face. "Brothers, are your dragons and monsters fighting for monster meat? How come mine are so well mannered, lining up for me to raise?" Xuan said connotatively. "Brother Lu, are you kidding? Those dragons and giant pythons are of low intelligence, and they are fierce and aggressive. How can they listen to your arrangements?" Xuan and the others showed astonishment on their faces. "Whether it is true or not, Brother Xuan, you will know when I come to take a look next time I raise them." "Okay, I will definitely come to take a look. Although I don't know what method Brother Lu used. If it is really as you said, then I will tell the brothers who deal with monster materials and ask them to supply monster meat according to the recipe you provided." Xuan was curious about what Xuan said and also wanted to see if Xuan's move had any special meaning, so he nodded and promised Xuan. Soon half a day passed and it was time for the dragons to eat. Xuan brought 3 huge wooden barrels to the high platform. Under his feet, dozens of dragons and giant pythons were lined up in an orderly manner in the lake, waiting eagerly. "Junior brother Lu, you really surprised me." Xuan looked at the many obedient dragon monsters below with great curiosity and was amazed. "I wonder what the deep meaning of junior brother Lu's movies. Can you explain it to me?" "It doesn't have any special meaning. It's just that, when I was raising them before, every dragon and python had to fight for food at the risk of their lives. Not only might they not be full, but they might even get injured and affect their growth. So, I used a little trick to train them well and ensure that they can eat enough monster meat. At the same time, it's also an experiment to see if adjusting the diet structure of the dragons can promote their growth and evolution." Xuan said lightly. Everything he said was true, but he concealed the fact that he had already learned about the eating habits of these dragons under his name. Adjust the diet structure of the dragons? It sounds interesting. Xuan fell into deep thought. Xuan smiled and said nothing. He knew in his heart how much a balanced diet was beneficial to the growth of organisms. In his previous life, The young people of the generation after him had sufficient meat, eggs and milk, and their average height jumped like bamboo. Similarly, if the dragons can be given enough delicious and suitable monster meat, their growth rate can be accelerated. He was not worried that his recipe would be leaked. Xuan tailored recipes for each dragon after understanding their status. Oranges grown in the south of the Hui River are oranges, while those grown in the north of the Hui River are bitter oranges. The same recipe does not mean that it will have a huge effect on other dragons. After seeing the magical behavior of the dragons raised by Xuan, Xuan immediately introduced him to several fellow disciples who handled monster meat, and specifically asked them to provide Xuan with monster meat. The type and amount should try to meet Xuan's requirements. After dealing with the recipe problem, Xuan returned to the cave with satisfaction. When he opened the gate, a familiar black shadow flashed by. Entering the yard, the cloud-stepping lynx lay lazily, with green eyes staring at Xuan lightly, and let out a slightly pinched roar. I'm back. After staying in Xianji insect for such a long time, the cloud-stepping lynx has become more majestic under the nourishment of rich and pure spiritual energy. Its black fur is shiny and glossy, and its thick paws are pure white and flawless, landing silently. It's just that Xuan is often away, leaving it alone in the yard. It can often sense that it is a little lonely and desolate, so it always waits for Xuan to come back to the house at the door. Xuan took out some dried monster meat from the inner room, tore it into thin strips, and put it in front of the cloud-stepping lynx. The cloud-stepping lynx's green eyes were still indifferent, but it was full of joy in its heart. It squinted its green eyes slightly, picked up the meat strips slowly, and stuffed them into its mouth. Xuan came to the spiritual field, and the grass puppet was still tirelessly patrolling the ridges of the spiritual field. The spiritual plants in various parts of the spiritual field were growing well. Chapter 117. Key Training Level 9. Treating the Alien Anaconda. Inside the spiritual field, all kinds of spiritual plants are growing very well. The third grade phantom smoke LUO fruit is engulfing a larger and larger area with smoke. Fortunately, Xuan left it enough space in advance so that it did not affect other spiritual plants around it. The black vines of the Jiaoteng are covered with enchanting red and green patterns. The whole vine is like a vicious and poisonous snake lurking in the dark. The second grade Liaguang wood and Yunhui obtained from the Sinan Palace have grown a lot during this period. There are more and more translucent spiritual power threads on the Liaguang wood. Xuan spent a lot of effort to guide them well. In the cave, where the Yunhui grows, the yin energy is getting heavier and heavier. When you enter it, you can clearly feel a cold chill. The joints of the copper bone bamboo are getting taller and the color is getting deeper. The 28 blood jade ginsengs obtained by the method of condensing seeds are also growing well, which makes Xuan feel more at ease about the method of condensing spiritual seeds. The firefly grass has entered the stage of mass maturity. Xuan carefully explored the detailed status of each firefly grass and picked 30 fully mature fireflies. Among them, 7 were of good quality, 15 were of superior quality, and the remaining 8 were of perfect quality. At this point, there were still 116 of the 200 Lingyian grasses left. Xuan certainly would not pick them all. He planned to keep some to condense the spiritual seeds of Lingyian grass. After picking, 30 slightly flickering white light balls appeared. After Xuan absorbed them one by one reward after another emerged in his mind like a horse-drawn lantern. The light ball brought him nearly 7 years of cultivation. A large amount of spiritual energy poured into Xuan's body, raging wildly between his danshan and tendons. Xuan, can get to this point today by relying on my own efforts. Light ball, add cultivation to me. Xuan shouted softly in his heart. When he calmed down, Xuan felt that he had quietly broken through a layer of mysterious barrier and his cultivation was promoted to the 9th level of key training. 9th level of key training. The next thing to do is to accumulate cultivation and increase the possibility of breaking through the foundation building. Xuan was filled with emotion. In just 2.5 years, his cultivation was like riding a rocket, leaping from the 2nd level of key training to the 9th level of key training. Even the foundation building realm that was out of reach in the past did not seem far away. If it were my own talent, background, and resources, I might not be able to break through to the third level of key training in 2.5 years, let alone the middle and even high levels of key training. He thought secretly, and was extremely fortunate to have the great opportunity of the white light ball. After calming down his thoughts, Lu Xuan came to the 3 second grade King Neolingcha. On the old tree roots, there were still 14 leaves of tender green tea leaves, with a refreshing fragrance that made people feel refreshed. Another 4 leaves of King Neolingcha tea have reached the fully mature stage, second grade spiritual plants. Lu Xuan smiled softly and picked 4 mature King Neolingcha tea leaves. Among the 4 leaves, 3 were of good quality, and the first one was of top quality. He picked up the white balls of light that appeared at the tea picking position one by one. Thoughts flashed through his mind one by one. Harvest a piece of King Neolingcha tea. Obtain the 3rd grade elixir dust reduction pill. Right square bracket asterisk. 2 fragrant and round dust reduction pills appeared in his palm. Lu Xuan carefully put them into the storage bag and put them together with the dust reduction pills he had obtained before. Harvest a piece of King Neolingcha tea. Obtain the 3rd grade talisman purifying spirit talisman. It is still the 3rd grade purifying spirit talisman that has a powerful effect on the evil spirits of the weird level. Lu Xuan was looking forward to the last white ball of light brought by the top quality tea. Harvest a piece of King Neolingcha tea. Obtain the 3rd grade skill glass bone refining skill part 1. Thoughts flashed through his mind, and a lot of information poured into Lu Xuan's mind, all about the practice methods, tips, and experiences of the key training stage of glass bone refining skill. Lu Xuan seemed to have practiced this skill for many years, and the bones in his body were quietly changing, and bits of fishy and dirty things were discharged from his limbs. With his spiritual sense, Lu Xuan found that his bones were like white jade, crystal clear, and the hardness increased a lot. Why is it the upper part of glass bone forging technique again? Lu Xuan looked at the remaining 11 pieces of King Neolingcha tea leaves, thinking a little unsatisfied. Although he had an extra skill experience pack, which saved him a lot of time for practice, Lu Xuan wanted to get the lower part of glass bone forging technique more. With some regrets, Lu Xuan inspected the spiritual field, performing the spiritual rain technique, earth attraction technique, wood growth technique, etc. in turn, trying to meet the subtle requirements of each spiritual plant. Half a day passed in a blink of an eye, and it was not long before the meal of the dragon monster. Lu Xuan rented a spiritual crane, and after a while, he rushed to the base where he raised the dragon monster. He took the meat specially customized in variety and quantity from the monk, who processed the monster meat, and came to the high platform. On the lake surface below the platform, dozens of dragons and giant pythons were quietly arranged in an orderly manner. When they saw Lu Xuan, they gently swung their long and thick tails, and they were extremely excited. Little ones, it's time to eat. Don't worry, I promise to make sure you all eat well. Lu Xuan grabbed a ball of monster meat with his spiritual power and threw it to the area where several dragons and monsters were. Many dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas have completely adapted to the new way of feeding and are slowly enjoying the delicious monster meat. Occasionally, a trace of fierceness appeared in their eyes, but when they saw Lu Xuan looking down on the platform, they quickly disappeared. Ang. Just when Lu Xuan wanted to leave, a fiery red anaconda did not leave, but stopped in its area, roaring at him in a low voice, with a begging tone in its voice. Lu Xuan stopped and lowered his head to carefully observe the body of the anaconda below. Seeing this, the anaconda turned up its belly, revealing a huge scar deep enough to see the bone. Its skin and flesh rolled out, and one could imagine the intense pain. Are you injured? Lu Xuan asked with concern. The second grade anaconda seemed to understand his question, and nodded its head gently, while enduring the pain. Is it a companion who enjoyed the monster meat together? A hint of coldness flashed in Lu Xuan's eyes. Yeah. The fiery red anaconda shook its head quickly to deny it. It looks like it was done by the dragon monsters raised by other fellow disciples in the nearby area. Seeing that it was not the dragons he raised, Lu Xuan felt relieved. Qianlong Lake stretches for hundreds of miles, and the environments where the first grade and second grade dragons and pythons grow are not clearly distinguished. They each find a piece of water to live in. Therefore, there are occasional cases of fighting for territory and resources. This second grade anaconda is probably defeated by the dragon monsters raised by other cultivators. Chapter 118 Blood Test. Before we start eating today, I have something to tell you. Yesterday, one of the anacondas present was accidentally injured in a battle for territory with other dragon monsters. I know this happens often, but from now on, I want you to do one thing. You must help each other. Once a companion is in danger, you must help immediately. Those who save others will always save others. Only by uniting can we resist foreign enemies and protect ourselves. Do you understand? On the high platform, Xuan said to the dozens of dragons and giant pythons neatly arranged in the lake. Many dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas below nodded, indicating that they understood. Okay, after eating the monster meat, I will keep you for a while. During this time, you should remember the breath and calls of your companions, and remember the waters, where each companion lives. Once a companion calls for help, other dragon monsters nearby must go to help, as soon as possible. Xuan said with satisfaction. Under his means of both kindness and power, these dragons and pythons have long been trained to be obedient, and obey his words. 2 days later, Xuan observed these dragons and pythons while raising them. He did not find that the fiery red anaconda was seriously injured. Perhaps fighting together brought out more feelings. He noticed that some dragons and pythons became closer to each other. From the beginning of fighting for monster meat, to queuing to receive monster meat, to waiting for after and play before dinner, the relationship has become closer and closer. Seeing this, Xuan was very relieved. After finishing a round of feeding, he was about to leave when suddenly, the fiery red anaconda that he had treated for injuries growled at him, and its huge fiery red body slowly swam on the lake. Seeing Xuan looking at it, the fiery red anaconda raised its upper body, turned its head, and nodded towards its back. Do you want me to sit on it? Xuan asked curiously. The fiery red anaconda nodded quickly, with a strong intimacy in its eyes. Then I'll come over. Xuan jumped and landed gently on the back of the fiery red anaconda. The fiery red anaconda immediately growled excitedly, carrying Xuan, and swimming towards the center of Qianlong Lake. There are additional restrictions in the places where the 3rd grade and above Qianlong children live, so there is no need to worry about safety issues. Xuan sat on the fiery red anaconda with peace of mind. The lake's surface was shimmering, and from time to time a huge Qianlong rushed out from the bottom of the water. Slowly, dragons and giant pythons kept coming behind the fiery red anaconda, and Xuan found that they were all the ones he raised. Using a dragon as a boat, this is a real dragon boat. Under him was an anaconda several feet long, and behind him were a group of dragon brothers. Xuan felt very proud. I really have no way to repay you for supporting me so much. I can only give you a full body check. On the high platform, while throwing down the classified monster meat, Xuan said to the many dragon monsters below. During this period, have you felt that your strength has improved rapidly? Several dragons and giant pythons lined up in the lake nodded one after another. Xuan's improved feeding method can not only make them full, but also let them eat monster meat suitable for them, thereby speeding up their growth. This is especially obvious for those giant pythons and anacondas with low strength. Because of their own strength, they often ate some monster meat residues before, and they couldn't even fill their stomachs, let alone eat the specific monster meat suitable for them. Seeing this, Xuan nodded with satisfaction. In order to further promote your growth, I decided to give you a full body check. The main thing is to check whether there are any hidden diseases or injuries left before, and whether you have eaten any unhealthy food at the bottom of the lake, and even to check whether there are any filthy and evil things in your body. In order to make the inspection more rigorous and meticulous, one of the contents is to draw a small amount of blood from you. But don't worry, only a little bit will be taken. With your physique of Qianlong alien anaconda, you can recover in 2 or 3 days. Xuan said softly with a smile. The blood of the green water python brought before was almost used up, and Xuan set his sights on these Qianlong giant pythons in Qianlong Lake. How can you return empty-handed after entering a treasure mountain? After training these Qianlong giant pythons to be obedient, he finally planned to start with them. Many Qianlong giant pythons did not suspect him. Lu Xuan's care and cultivation of them during this period was very effective, so they really thought that Lu Xuan's blood drawing was for their own good. Lu Xuan landed gently on the lake and waved at the fiery red anaconda. "Come here, let me give you a full body check." Lu Xuan pretended to check every part of the anaconda's body and took out a second-grade red thread needle. "It's the first time, so it will be a little painful, just bear with it." The fiery red anaconda nodded, and Lu Xuan inserted the red thread needle into its body. After pulling it out, the needle-sized wound began to ooze fiery red blood. He used a small white J bottle prepared in advance to catch the blood. After catching half of the bottle, he stopped and signaled the fiery red anaconda to heal its wound by itself. These dragons and pythons usually bleed and suffer a lot of injuries in fighting. This little injury and blood is nothing to them. "Why are your scales so hard? My needle can't get in." Lu Xuan looked at the two-headed dragon with black scales in front of him helplessly. Just when he used the red needle to pierce the dragon's body, an embarrassing situation occurred. He couldn't break the defense. Hearing this, the two-headed dragon twisted its body a few times, rolled in the lake, and showed its poorly defended belly in front of Lu Xuan. "Really, why is the defense point so high?" Lu Xuan complained, and used his spiritual power to control the red needle to pierce the two-headed dragon's body, and also took out a small half bottle of fresh blood. "Zio Bing Bing, it's your turn." He held the red needle and came to the alien ice dragon. The ice dragon's eyes were 3 parts fearful and 7 parts flattering, and it took the initiative to move its body in front of Lu Xuan. The red needle went in and out, and when it was pulled out, a stream of blood exuding coldness slowly flowed out. Lu Xuan quickly used a small white J bottle to collect it. This was the blood of the alien Kai dragon, and it was extraordinary at first glance. "Okay, the examination is over. I will take the blood sample back to the cave and test it with my unique method. If there is any abnormality, I will come to you again." Lu Xuan returned to the high platform and said indifferently to the many dragons and pythons below. This blood test obtained a small amount of blood from dozens of dragons and pythons, which is enough for Jiao Teng to use for a while. What good luck, I can actually enjoy the blood of a different species of dragon chilling. If it doesn't mature quickly, it will be a shame for my cultivation. Lu Xuan sighed. Like the ice sky, the two-headed dragon is at the second grade stage because of its larval growth period, but its own blood is far more than the second grade, so its blood is much more precious than the green water python blood, and Jiao Teng can have a full meal every day. Chapter 119. Just kids fighting. In the stone house by the lake. When Lu Xuan was about to receive the monster meat he ordered, a high-level key training cultivator came over. "Junior brother Lu, wait a moment, I have something to bother you with." It turns out to be senior brother Li. "What's the important matter?" The visitor, like Lu Xuan, received the task of raising the dragon monster. He would occasionally meet him when he came to the stone house. They were just ordinary nodding acquaintances. "Junior brother Lu, a dragon under my command, was seriously injured yesterday. The reason for the serious injury is very simple. It was bullied by a group of dragons and pythons. And this is not the first time this has happened. The group of dragons and pythons should be the dragons under Junior Brother Lu's name, so I hope Junior Brother Lu can restrain them. If they are seriously injured and cannot be cured, it will not be good for both you and me," the high-level key training cultivator said with a gloomy face. "Really? I'm only responsible for raising them for monster meat, and I don't care what they do normally. Besides, there are so many dragons and pythons in Kyan Lan Lake. Are you sure that it was done by the dragons and pythons I raised?" Lu Xuan said with a stern expression. In the several fighting scenes, there was a two-headed dragon. This is a different kind of dragon, which is rarely seen. Only Brother Lu has one in the nearby waters. Why does this two-headed dragon have two heads? The characteristics are too obvious, and it's hard to disguise itself. Lu Xuan cursed in his heart. Perhaps it was because he had been too strict in recent times. After allowing his companions to help, the fierce and aggressive two-headed dragon found a good opportunity to vent. Whenever there was a fight, it rushed to the front and abused many dragons and pythons raised by other cultivators. "Oh, really? As for the two-headed dragon, it should be the one I raised. I'm not sure about the others. Besides, it was just a fight between children. Brother, don't take it to heart. Lu Xuan said with a smile. Brother, what you said is wrong. Who would beat the other half to death? The high-level key training cultivator said with an unhappy expression. Those dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas belong to different tribes, with different strengths, and some are even natural enemies. For them to join forces, to deal with a dragon monster, could it be that the dragon did something too much? Brother, shouldn't you reflect on it? Lu Xuan argued. Yes, these dragons and giant pythons usually fight each other to the point of bloodshed when they fight for a piece of monster meat, and they fight among themselves. How could they join forces to fight against foreign enemies? The high-level key training cultivator was stunned. Lu Xuan smiled and entered the stone house to receive the monster meat. On the high platform, he picked up pieces of monster meat that he had specially selected and threw them accurately to the area where the dragons and giant pythons were. These dragons and giant pythons have long been accustomed to Lu Xuan's feeding method, and they are honest, quiet, and dutiful, waiting in their fixed areas. Just after Lu Xuan threw out all the monster meat, a fiery red python attracted his attention. The giant python raised its head high, and the spiritual energy of its fiery red scales surged like a group of burning flames. It hissed from time to time, as if it was experiencing unbearable pain. After a long time, the flames merged into the red scales again, and Lu Xuan noticed that the spiritual power in the fiery red python increased a lot. Is this promoted to the second grade? Lu Xuan looked at the fiery red python and was overjoyed. The fiery red python was called the red armor python, a different species of python. It was at the first grade stage before. With his careful cultivation and quantitative supply, it finally succeeded in being promoted to the second grade monster. As far as he knew, if the grade of the dragon python he raised was promoted, he, as a breeder, would be rewarded with a lot of money. A first grade giant python and an anaconda were promoted to the second grade and rewarded with 10 sword seals, and a second grade was promoted to the third grade and rewarded with 50 sword seals. Lu Xuan looked at the red armored python and other giant dragon pythons approaching him from below, as if he saw a pile of moving sword marks. Not only did he feed every dragon, but he also provided them with the most suitable monster meat according to their preferences and physical needs. Under this tailor-made breeding method, the growth rate of these giant dragon pythons he raised would definitely be faster than those raised by other fellow disciples. While Lu Xuan was daydreaming, a familiar voice came. Junior brother Lu, are you raising dragons? Lu Xuan turned around and saw Huang Yuan, who had completed his key training, walking over with a smile. Yes, hello, senior brother Huang. These dragons raised by junior brother Lu seem to be growing very well. I must ask junior brother Lu for advice when I have the chance. Huang Yuan smiled and said loudly. Brother Huang, you are too polite. What is the matter with you? It's like this. I heard that you, brother Lu, drew blood from the dragons while raising them. I personally think that these dragons belong to the sect and cannot be offended or harmed. Moreover, this is not conducive to the growth of the dragons. What do you think, brother Lu? It was reported by a fellow sect member. Lu Xuan immediately thought of the fellow sect member whose dragon was seriously injured. He paused and organized his tone. Brother, I just drew a little blood from them. It won't damage their roots. Besides, it was to give them a detailed full body examination to find out some of their previous hidden diseases and eliminate the invasion and contamination of filthy things. Lu Xuan said in a high-sounding manner. Really? Drawing blood is to check them? Huang Yuan was half believing and half doubting. Of course it's true. The custom recipes we made before are also designed to help them grow quickly. Look, there's already a first grade alien giant python that's been promoted to the second grade. Lu Xuan pointed to the red armored python that hadn't retreated yet and said confidently. Junior brother Lu has just been here to raise the dragon monster for more than a month, and an alien giant python has been promoted to the second grade. The improvement is remarkable. But, this doesn't mean that it's all your credit, junior brother Lu. After all, these giant pythons are originally alien species, and it's only natural for them to be promoted to the second grade. Before Huang Yuan finished speaking, the water below suddenly moved, and a snow-white dragon emerged from the bottom of the lake. The dragon was filled with cold air, freezing the surrounding water into pieces of ice. A huge amount of spiritual energy surged from all over Qian Long Lake and was absorbed into the body of the Snow White Dragon. This is. Huang Yuan was stunned, with 7 parts of surprise and 3 parts of uncertainty in his eyes. Brother Huang, I have something I don't understand. May I ask, if it is natural for a rank 1 to be promoted to rank 2, then is it also natural for a rank 2 to be promoted to rank 3? Lu Xuan looked at Huang Yuan with a smile. This Bing Kai is really proud of itself. Picking such a good time to be promoted. It's worth the ice attribute monster meat I usually feed you. In his heart, he gave a thumbs up to Bing Kai, who was promoted to rank 3. Chapter 120, Purification Mantra, Forced Sage Mode. Brother Lu, you are joking. Although this ice Kai is a different species, it is not easy to be promoted to the 3rd level. I believe that you have spent a lot of effort on it. Huang Yuan's tone was full of admiration. He managed so many dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas, and his main purpose was to make them break through to the 3rd level. To achieve this level is not an easy task. Monster beasts are restricted by their bloodlines, and it is more difficult for them to break through than cultivators. When the luck of raising dragons and giant pythons is bad, it takes several years for a dragon to break through to the 3rd level. However, Lu Xuan only raised it for more than a month, and one of his dragon monsters appeared. As for the promotion of the different species of ice Kai, it doesn't matter much. Among the cultivators who raise dragon monsters, who doesn't have a few different species of dragons and chillungs? Why didn't they see the dragons and chillungs under their hands being promoted? The frozen ice on the lake surface broke apart, and the ice Kai that had just broken through drilled out from it and swam happily in the lake. At this time, it was much stronger than before in terms of size and bearing. After swimming for a while, the 3rd grade ice Kai returned to the platform, raised its white jade-like head, and roared at Lu Xuan in a low voice, with a voice full of attachment and reluctance, as if saying goodbye to Lu Xuan. Although it had the humiliating experience of being hung in the air by Lu Xuan for half a day, it did not have any complaints in its heart, but was very grateful to Lu Xuan. It knew very well that the reason why it was promoted to the 3rd grade so quickly was largely related to the most suitable food provided to it by Lu Xuan every meal. This little guy has been tortured by me and has developed feelings for him. Lu Xuan smiled and waved his hand at the 3rd grade ice Kai. Go, see you again, if there is a chance. The ice Kai nodded heavily, flicked its tail, dived into Qian Long Lake, and disappeared. This ice Kai is still in Qian Long Lake. But after it was promoted to the 3rd grade, it is not something that we, the key training cultivators, can control. There are foundation building uncles to raise and train them. Huang Yuan explained on the side. Junior brother Lu has a 3rd grade chillung under his command, which is a great achievement. According to the regulations, when raising dragons and pythons, if a monster breaks through from the 1st grade to the 2nd grade, 10 sword seals will be awarded, and if the 2nd grade breaks through to the 3rd grade, 50 sword seals will be awarded, including the red armored python that junior brother mentioned that just broke through to the 2nd grade. Junior brother has earned 60 sword seals at once, which makes me, senior brother, really envious. I'm just lucky. Lu Xuan said with a smile. Junior brother has unique skills in raising spirit beasts. I believe he can also cultivate 1 or 2 3rd grade Gianna Long chillungs. Then he will definitely be appreciated by the foundation building uncle, and maybe he will have the opportunity to cultivate those powerful Gianna Long chillungs of the 3rd and 4th grades. Haha, maybe I will have to draw blood from them by then. Lu Xuan laughed. What do you mean by blood drawing? Junior brother Lu is just giving them a thorough and detailed check to clear the obstacles to their promotion. Only in this way can so many dragons, giant pythons, etc. break through easily. Huang Yuan understood what Lu Xuan meant by this, and even gave him a better reason for drawing blood. Brother still understands me. The two smiled at each other, and everything was said without words. After completing the one-day feeding task, Lu Xuan found a spiritual crane on the shore of Qian Long Lake, and asked it to send him back to the cave. Lu Xuan did not have time to go into the house to rest for a while, but went directly to the spiritual field to check the growth status of many spiritual plants. Seeing that each spiritual plant was growing well, Xuan was relieved and came to the area where the spiritual firefly grass was planted and began to harvest mature spiritual fireflies. After carefully searching the spiritual field, Xuan picked 34 spiritual fireflies that had entered the fully mature stage. In this way, there were 82 spiritual fireflies left out of the 200 spiritual fireflies planted. Among the 34 plants, 6 were of perfect quality, and the rest were of good or superior quality. The 34 white light balls that appeared gave out rewards for about 7 years of cultivation, which allowed Xuan to stabilize his 9th level key training while taking a big step forward. He was of average talent, and the rewards were based on his own standards. The spiritual power of 7 years of normal cultivation was much less than that of a genius, so he could only improve his cultivation by harvesting more firefly grass. In addition, there were first grade elixirs, a number of first grade talismans, and several first grade magic experience packs, which were a bit useless for Xuan, who had already reached the 9th level of key training. The light ball rewards from the 6 perfect quality firefly grasses were not bad, including 3 drops of grass spirit essence liquid, 2 first grade PO and pill recipe experience packs, and a first grade Genjin sword tactic experience pack. Xuan placed the 34 firefly grasses he had picked in a jade box, put them in his storage bag, and then came to the 3 King Mio lincture. His mind was focused on the tender green and fragrant tea leaves. Suddenly, a faint progress bar came into view. Among them, the progress bar below 5 King Mio lincture tea leaves was full. Xuan was happy and carefully picked the 5 tea leaves. The fragrance of the tea leaves was refreshing. The quality was pretty good. 3 of them were good quality and 2 of them were top quality. After the tea leaves were picked, 5 slightly flickering white light balls appeared in the original position. It's time to open the light ball again. Xuan chuckled. The 2nd grade King Mio lincture, including 2 top grade tea leaves, he was still looking forward to the light balls that appeared. He picked up the white light balls one by one. The light balls turned into countless light spots and poured into his mind. Harvest 1 King Mio lincture tea leaf and obtain the 3rd grade dust reducing pill. Right square bracket asterisk 2 round pills with a fragrant aroma appeared in Xuan's hands one after another. Harvest 1 King Mio lincture tea leaf and obtain the 3rd grade talisman purification talisman. A talisman that looked like a white jade carving appeared in Xuan's hand. The talisman had dense and complex patterns and exuded a holy and pure aura. 3 high quality King Mio lincture tea leaves. The rewards were within Xuan's expectations. Harvest 1 King Mio lincture tea leaf and obtain glass bone tempering method part 1. Or thought flashed through Xuan's mind, and then a large amount of body refining information rushed into his sea of consciousness. He had a deeper and more thorough understanding of glass bone tempering method, as if he had practiced for many years. Another experience pack. When can I get the lower part of the practice? Xuan, who originally thought he was as stable as an old dog, was not very confident. The upper part of the practice is only the key training stage, and the lower part has the practice method of the foundation building stage. Its importance is self-evident. Harvest 1 King Mio lincture tea leaf and obtain the 2nd grade magic method of purification. The thought flashed, and a magic method flooded into Xuan's mind. Purification mantra, 2nd level, auxiliary magic. After silently reciting this mantra, one can clear the mind and get rid of distracting thoughts and desires in the cultivator's mind so that he can maintain a state of tranquility and inaction without desires or demands. In this state, it is not easy to be invaded and polluted by evil spirits, and one can enter the state of cultivation more quickly, temporarily increasing the speed of cultivation can be cast on others. Get rid of desires. Xuan was full of doubts. Isn't that forcing you to enter the sage mode? Chapter 121, Wind Falcon, Raising Sword Good. After Xuan absorbed the 2nd grade purification mantra, he could not suppress his curiosity, silently chanted the mantra, and cast it on himself. Suddenly, he felt as if his whole body fell into an ice cave, and all the distracting thoughts and desires in his mind were dispelled by the cold air, leaving only a vast expanse of white. He took the initiative to recall the familiar letters and numbers, the name of his teacher in his previous life, and many figures flashed through his mind, but his heart did not fluctuate at all. I have lost my worldly desires. Lu Xuan sighed, and had a general understanding of the second grade purification mantra in his heart. He put the 5 King Miaoling tea leaves together with the previous ones, and continued to inspect the spiritual field. Under the spiritual spring and strange stone, seeing Lu Xuan coming, the young iron claw crab held up a pair of blue-black claws like a broadsword, showing off its might, and the claws opened and closed, as if showing off its strength to Lu Xuan. It looks like it has grown a lot during this period. Let me let you feel it for yourself. Lu Xuan took out the most arrogant young crab, and asked the cloud-stepping lynx to guard it to prevent it from returning to the spiritual spring. He shook out a large pile of copper and iron ore from the storage bag. Pieces of ore were continuously sent to the claws of the crab, and the sound of crackling was endless and beautiful. Lu Xuan waited until these copper and iron ores became broken into small stones before he stopped and let go of the young crab whose claws were already trembling slightly. He took some cold spring water from the well, entered the cave, and poured it around the yin hui. After coming out of the cave, under the sunlight, the strong coldness on his body dissipated a little. He then came to the spiritual field, where the flowing light wood and the copper bone bamboo were planted. According to their subtle needs, he used the spirit rain technique and wood growth technique to sort out the lines on the flowing light wood plants, leaving a large pile of red copper and iron fragments at the roots of the copper bone bamboo. After checking the growth of the phantom smoke luo fruit, Lu Xuan came to the jiaoteng. He took out a small white jade bottle from his storage bag, which contained the fresh blood he had drawn from many Jianalang pythons. Jiaoteng, Jiaoteng, in order to make you mature as soon as possible, I lowered my face and begged a little here and there, and only then did I get this precious Jianalang blood. It's just that there are more varieties. Just think of it as eating blood from hundreds of families. I don't have any other requirements. I just hope that you will grow well and mature quickly because of my hard work. This is the biggest reward for me. Lu Xuan muttered to himself while watering the Jianalang blood. As both are second grade, Jianalang blood is indeed much more effective than the green water python blood. After the Jiao vine absorbed the blood, the whole vine seemed to come alive, twisting constantly like a seductive and sinister black snake. I wonder if the Jianalang Chilang bloodline can improve the quality of the Jiao vine. Lu Xuan watched from the side for a while, then left the spiritual field and returned to the house. After 2 consecutive tasks, cultivating monkey-faced orchids and raising Jianalang monsters, he earned a lot of extra sword seals through his understanding of the real-time status of spiritual plants and beasts. Raising Jianalang for a month will earn him 10 sword seals, and the red armored python will be rewarded with 10 sword seals for breaking through, and the ice kai will be rewarded with 50 sword seals for breaking through. Together with the 87 sword seals left before, he now has a total of 157 sword seals in his hand. I earned 157 sword seals from 2 tasks. Those fellow disciples who have experienced hardships and even encountered life and death struggles outside may not have earned as much as I have. Lu Xuan said with emotion. With so many sword seals, it's more than enough to buy a 3rd grade spirit seed, and also a speed type demon bird egg or young bird. The last time he entered the Sinner Hall, he noticed that the sword seals required for the 3rd grade spirit seed ranged from dozens to hundreds. Therefore, he also wanted to buy a demon bad to raise and try. Because of the special spiritual field and the need to cultivate spiritual plants every day, it was inconvenient for him to live in the Kian Long Lake Stone House, and he had to travel back and forth between the 2 places every day. The journey was long, so he had to take a spirit crane, which consumed 2 spirit stones every day. Although with his current wealth, he could fully afford this commuting cost, but Lu Xuan had always been thrifty and had no intention of buying a flying magic weapon, so he planned to raise a flying bird. When it grows up, it can be used as a commuting tool and can also be rewarded with a light ball, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He came to a hall called the Beast Taming Hall, which was much more magnificent than the Sinner Hall, and the spirit cranes should have contributed a lot. You know, the spirit cranes that are everywhere in the Xianjian sector are under the jurisdiction of the Beast Taming Hall, and it is unknown how much spirit stone income they can bring in a day. Lu Xuan secretly estimated and inwardly sighed at the lavishness of the beast taming hall and entered the hall. Hello, senior sister, I want to buy a demon bird egg or a demon bad chick. The grade is 2nd grade, preferably with a higher speed. I can pay with spirit stones or sword seals. After entering, Lu Xuan found a female cultivator of the beast taming hall, bowed and asked. Although the 1st grade demon bird is easier to cultivate, the light ball reward it brings is likely to be a bit tasteless, and the number of sword seals for the 3rd grade is a bit difficult with his current cultivation level, so he plans to raise a 2nd grade demon bird. There are not many varieties of 2nd grade demon birds in the sect that can immediately provide chicks or eggs. Junior brother, do you want to consider the wind falcon? It is a 2nd grade demon bird, and its speed is of course the best among the same grade demon birds. It is also quite docile and easy to raise. The female cultivator recommended it to Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan compared other varieties of demon birds and finally nodded. Okay, I'll do as you say, senior sister. Junior brother, just pay 35 sword seals. Lu Xuan took out 35 sword seals and took a demon bird egg full of vitality from the female cultivator. The demon bird egg was not small in size. It was slightly wider than Lu Xuan's shoulders when he held it in his hand. There was a slight air current flowing on the surface of the green eggshell. Lu Xuan put it in the life bag for the time being. After buying the spirit seeds and returning, he signed a contract to hatch the young wind falcon inside. Afterwards, he rented a spirit crane and came to the Sinner Hall. After entering, Lu Xuan saw the old farmer-like cultivator last time, smiled slightly, and walked up to him. Senior brother, I want to buy a 3rd grade spirit seed. I can pay with spirit stones or sword seals. Please recommend 1 or 2. The old farmer cultivator raised his head, his expression was stunned, and he seemed to have some impression of Lu Xuan. Then, he opened 2 jade books. Brother, please take a look. The 3rd grade spiritual seeds you can choose are in these 2 jade books. One book has less than 10 species, all of which are common 3rd grade spiritual plants in the cultivation world. You can buy them directly with spiritual stones. The other book has more species, most of which are relatively rare and precious spiritual seeds. Some of them are unique to the sect and can only be exchanged for sword seals. Lu Xuan nodded lightly and skipped the common 3rd grade spiritual plants. The richness of the light ball rewards is also closely related to the variety of spiritual plants. The rarer the spiritual plants, the easier it is to get rare rewards. The rewards of the rare and precious sword grass, dark marrow Ganoderma and King Neo spiritual tea are very different. On the jade book, the 3-dimensional pattern of spiritual plants appeared vividly in front of Lu Xuan, and there were detailed descriptions of the types and effects in the corners. That's it. Lu Xuan flipped through it and liked one of the spiritual plants at first sight. Sword raising gourd, a 3rd grade spiritual plant. When mature, the gourd contains invisible sword energy, which is extremely powerful. A mottled green gourd appeared in front of Lu Xuan. From the picture album, one could vaguely see sword energy emanating from the gourd, as if it could penetrate the body at any time. Chapter 122 Sword Grass Mystery. Sword raising gourds, 3rd grade spiritual plants that are mainly used for attack are really too rare. Lu Xuan sighed in his heart. Spiritual plants are usually used as the main material for alchemy. Some can be taken directly to improve the spiritual power of cultivators, exorcise evil spirits, heal wounds, etc. A small number of them can be used as materials for refining talismans and magic tools. Things like sword raising gourds that have extremely strong attack power are extremely rare. Excuse me, senior brother, how many sword seals do I need to exchange for a sword raising gourd spiritual seed? Lu Xuan asked the old farmer cultivator. 90 sword seals. Lu Xuan nodded slightly after hearing this. When he was in Linyang Market, there were also a few 3rd grade spiritual seeds for sale in Wanbao building, and the price was not less than 200 or 300 spiritual stones. And they were all relatively common varieties. If there were spiritual seeds like sword raising goods for sale, Lu Xuan estimated that it would be difficult to buy them even with 500 spiritual stones. This is the benefit of being backed by a large sect. As long as there are enough sword seals, various high-grade rare and precious spiritual seeds are no problem. Lu Xuan took out 90 sword seals and handed them to the old farmer cultivator. After a while, the monk came out of the inner hall and handed Lu Xuan a sword-raising good spiritual seed. The spiritual seed was light green, flat and long, about 1.5 inches long. At first glance, it looked like a pocket sword. "Thank you, senior brother." Lu Xuan carefully took the seed and put it into the storage bag. "By the way, senior brother, before I entered the sect, I happened to hear that there was a spiritual plant in the sect that was extremely mysterious and powerful, called sword grass. Why didn't I see it in these jade books?" he asked the old farmer monk. "Sword grass, that can't be exchanged for just the sword seal. There are also requirements for identity. Only inner disciples are qualified to plant it. Although it is only the 2nd grade, it is more difficult to plant than the ordinary 3rd grade, and its rarity is self-evident. More importantly, sword grass involves many secrets of the sect. It is a natural sword weapon, and under the cultivation of the sect's sword cultivators and spiritual plant masters of successive generations, it has derived 3rd grade and 4th grade spiritual plants such as sword peacocks and sword crows. Its importance can be seen. Although my junior brother is good at spiritual plants and has begun to plant and cultivate 3rd grade sword raising goods, if he wants to plant sword grass, he still needs to endure for a while. After becoming an inner disciple, he is qualified to plant sword grass." The old farmer monk talked freely. Although he did not have the qualifications to plant sword grass, he had worked in the synod hall for so long that he had a relatively clear understanding of sword grass. Hearing this, Lu Xuan hesitated in his heart, considering whether to confess that he had planted a sword grass. He weighed the pros and cons again and again, and finally decided to tell the truth. Confessing that he planted sword grass can greatly enhance the value of his identity as a spiritual planter, thereby obtaining better spiritual fields, spiritual seeds, etc. Then, he will get a white light bowl with rich rewards, and obtain more cultivation and treasures. This part can be hidden, and he only needs to consolidate the character of a spiritual planter on weekdays. To be honest, senior brother, I accidentally got a sword grass seed in a small market in the outside world. After experimenting and exploring for a while, I actually found a way to cultivate sword grass and successfully planted a sword grass. Lu Xuan said in a low voice. "Junior brother, are you joking? It's okay to get the sword grass spiritual seed by chance. Although there are very few spiritual seeds that have leaked to the outside world, it is still possible to do it. Then find out how to plant sword grass?" The old farmer monk seemed to have heard something incredible, and his face was full of disbelief. "Here, senior brother, look, is it a sword grass?" Lu Xuan took out the sword grass from the storage bag and placed it in front of the old farmer monk. "Huh?" the monk exclaimed softly, picked up the black sword grass on the wooden table, observed it carefully, and flicked it with his fingers from time to time, and spiritual power seeped into it. "Although it is slightly different from the ones I have seen before, it is indeed a sword grass without a doubt. And it is of top quality?" The old farmer monk couldn't help but raise his head and looked at Lu Xuan in surprise. His eyes widened, and wrinkles piled up on his forehead. The man in front of him actually figured out how to grow a top quality sword grass by himself. He knew something about the planting method of sword grass, which could be simply summarized in one sentence: nourish and cultivate it with sword energy. It is easier said than done, and many complex conditions are hidden in this short sentence. First of all, a monk with profound attainments in the way of swordsmanship is needed to be able to finely control the sword energy, so as to meet the growth needs of the sword grass. Secondly, an experienced spiritual planter is needed to provide it with the most suitable sword energy according to the growth stage and growth status of the sword grass. You know, the body strength of the sword grass is different in each stage, and the demand for sword energy is also constantly changing. If the sword energy provided is too strong or too much, it may damage the sword grass. If the sword energy is too small or too weak, it will affect the quality of the sword grass and even produce an unformed sword grass. However, Lu Xuan had already met these two extremely difficult conditions before entering the Xianjian sect. This made the old farmer monk look at him with new eyes, and his tone unconsciously carried a bit of respect. "I didn't expect that junior brother Lu is actually a genius spiritual plant master. He successfully cultivated sword grass without a teacher. With your ability, you will definitely be valued by the seniors in the sect and entrusted with important tasks. When the time comes, don't forget me, your senior brother. Senior brother, you are joking. I'm just lucky, Lu Xuan said with a smile. Junior brother Lu, I will report the fact that junior brother cultivated the sword grass. But the hall master is now in seclusion in the inner sect, and it may take several days to know. Junior brother, can you tell me where your mansion is, and I will inform you when there is news. The old farmer monk said enthusiastically. Since Lu Xuan could cultivate such a rare spiritual plant as the sword grass, his future was naturally bright. He took the opportunity to sell it and make friends. Thank you, senior brother. Lu Xuan told the old farmer the location of the cave and left the Sinnoh hall with the sword raising good spiritual seeds. Outside the hall, he picked a tall spiritual crane and let it carry him to the cave. The spiritual crane was very fast, and after a while, it stayed above the cave. Lu Xuan jumped down lightly, handed over a spiritual stone, opened the formation, and entered the yard. I'm back. The cloud stepping lynx pretended to have just heard this, and walked out of the house slowly and gracefully, with a pair of green pupils looking at Lu Xuan indifferently. Ah. A rough roar with 7 points of meaning indicated that he had understood. Lu Xuan pulled the 2 tufts of grey hair on the tip of its ears, took out the windfalcon egg from the storage bag, and carefully placed it on the ground. This is our new friend. Remember not to bully him in the future. Lu Xuan looked at the big cat-like stepping cloud lynx and warned him. In his previous life, he had seen many videos of wild cats catching birds, so he gave stepping cloud lynx a shot of prevention in advance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123. I'm good at cultivating supreme sword energy. Upon hearing this, the cloud-stepping lynx walked to the giant cyan egg, sniffed the breath inside the eggshell curiously, and turned away. Lu Xuan gently stroked the light cyan pattern on the eggshell, and then signed a contract with it. After the contract was established, he felt a close connection with the little wind falcon in the eggshell that he had not yet met. Slowly injecting a trace of spiritual power into the cyan eggshell, the little wind falcon and the eggshell greedily absorbed it. A thought emerged in Lu Xuan's mind. The wind falcon, a second-grade demon bird, is known for its speed and is born with the ability to control low-level wind-related magic. It mainly feeds on demon beast meat, and the effect of containing wind-related spiritual power is better. I want to fly higher, and dance in the wind. It is a pleasant surprise that it can control low-level wind-related magic during its growth stage. Lu Xuan thought secretly in his heart. He bought it to cultivate a commuting vehicle, so the first thing he considered was speed. The wind falcon not only perfectly met his requirements, but also could control low-level wind magic by itself, which made Lu Xuan feel that it was worth the money. He focused his mind on the blue giant egg. Through the detailed understanding of its status, he knew that it would take some time for the wind falcon inside to hatch. After injecting a few subtle spiritual powers again, to meet the growth needs of the young wind falcon inside, Lu Xuan placed the giant egg in the corner of the house, and came to the spiritual field. He took out the sword raising good spirit seed that looked like a small sword, found a blank area, and controlled the spiritual soil to spread a small crack with the earth inducing technique, and put the sword raising good spirit seed into the crack. With his mind concentrated, or thought flashed through his mind in an instant. The sword raising good is a third-grade spiritual plant that can nourish invisible sword energy in the body, and is extremely powerful in killing. During the cultivation process, it is necessary to place a flying sword magic tool near the sword raising good. When the good grows, it will automatically absorb the sword intent in the flying sword, thereby nourishing more and stronger sword energy in the body. I'm good at cultivating supreme sword energy. Okay, I know you can cultivate sword energy. Lu Xuan agreed casually, and rummaged through the storage bag for a long time, and found a worn-out first-grade flying sword. This first-grade flying sword should have been obtained when the Xuan family invited him to enter the secret realm. Because it was so worn out, it had been gathering dust in the storage bag, and it was just right to be used as fertilizer for the sword cultivating good. He threw the worn out flying sword around the good spirit seed and returned to the house. After buying the 2nd grade wind falcon and the 3rd grade sword cultivating good this time, the sword seals on his hands suddenly decreased, and most of them were removed at once, leaving only 32 sword seals. I worked hard for hundreds of days, and I'm back to where I was before I entered the door. Xuan sighed and couldn't help but sigh. Those sword seals that took a long time to earn were spent like water. After more than 100 sword seals were spent, 2 sounds were heard. I still have to work hard to earn sword seals and try to get a 4th grade spirit seed. Xuan set a small goal and was instantly motivated. He planned to stick to the task of raising dragon monsters for a while. Although there were only 10 sword seals per month, as long as the dragons, giant pythons, and anacondas broke through and advanced, he would be rewarded with 10 or 50 sword seals. Why not do it? Moreover, he had already laid a good foundation. If he continued to raise them according to a specific monster meat recipe, it was estimated that many of the remaining dragons and giant pythons would soon achieve a breakthrough. Among them, several alien dragons like the two-headed dragon might be able to break through to the 3rd grade stage. Xuan didn't want to let others get such a good opportunity to earn sword seals. In addition, I have to find an opportunity to sell the mature spirit plants in my hands. At present, he has accumulated a lot of mature spirit plants, including more than 100 plants of non-grade spirit firefly grass. If they are left alone, their vitality will slowly disappear, affecting the quality. In addition, there are 1st grade pure snow lotus, 2nd grade dark marrow ganoderma, 2nd grade king neo spirit tea leaves, and some miscellaneous things. All these need to be sold as soon as possible in exchange for spirit stones or air spirit seeds. Xuan thought to himself. Suddenly, a steady voice came from outside the yard. Junior brother, I'm a fellow disciple who lives on the other side of this mountain. I'm here to visit you. Is it convenient? Fellow disciple on the other side? Xuan was puzzled and soon remembered that there was a cave on the other side of the mountainside. However, when he first moved here, the cultivator in the cave was not at home, so he did not have much impression. This mountain is not big or small. With the speed of the cultivators, it does not take half a minute to reach the cave. He suddenly realized and said without thinking, "Brother, come here. My humble home is so glorious. How can it be inconvenient? Brother, wait a moment. I will come out soon." Xuan quickly swept the things on the table into the storage bag and came to the outside of the yard. He opened the gate and a determined young cultivator stood not far from the door. Seeing Xuan coming out, the young cultivator smiled and greeted him with a fist. "My name is Shadows. I live not far from my junior brother's cave. I came to bother you and ask for a cup of tea. My name is Xuan. Welcome senior brother Zu. Please come in." Xuan returned the greeting and welcomed the determined young monk into the house. He brewed a pot of hot tea and brought up 2 plates of spiritual fruits. "Because I have been catching evil spirits in remote areas, I have not been in the sect for nearly half a year. When I came back, I found out that I had a new neighbor, junior brother. So, I came to visit." The two talked for a while, and Shadows took the initiative to talk about the reason why he had been away from the sect for a long time. Catching evil spirits for half a year? Senior brother is far superior to ordinary people in terms of strength and character. Junior brother admires you. Didn't you encounter any danger during this period? Xuan heard this and sighed from the bottom of his heart. Evil spirits are more difficult to deal with than monsters and monks, and the man in front of him can actually fight with evil spirits for half a year, hovering on the line of life and death every day. Xuan, who has been farming peacefully, feels terrified just thinking about it. I have encountered some dangerous situations, but they are all for my own training, nothing. Shadows, with a resolute look, lowered his head, with a flash of determination in his eyes. I was born in an ordinary family. Before entering the sect, I was just a casual cultivator. I had decent talent, but I was nothing in a sect full of geniuses. The only thing I have is that I have rich experience in fighting. I fought against monsters, people, and evil spirits again and again, to get to where I'm now," Zhu Xiao said in a relaxed manner, but Lu Zuan could hear the mountains of corpses and seas of blood and white bones in his tone. Although he didn't like taking risks, he admired Zhu Xiao's experience. "What a coincidence, I'm also a casual cultivator like you, and I come from a small market thousands of miles away," Lu Zuan said with a smile. "Then we are quite similar." Zhu Xiao heard this, and his eyes became more intimate. "Haha, compared to my senior brother, I'm far behind. I'm not as ambitious as my senior brother. I'm not very interested in competing for opportunities. I just want to be an ordinary spiritual plant master. Everyone has their own ambitions. It's hard to say who is right or wrong. It's just a choice," Zhu Xiao said in a deep voice. Chapter 124 Bluebird. "Brother, what you said makes sense." Lu Zuan nodded in agreement. The two chatted for a while, and Zhu Xiao said goodbye to Lu Zuan. Lu Zuan saw him off to the door, and watched him go away. He really admired this neighbor. He was able to enter a large sect like Xianjian sect as a casual cultivator, and he actually dealt with it for half a year, in order to capture the evil spirit. It is conceivable that his character is strong. However, admiration is admiration. Lu Zuan knows that the two paths are different, and he does not want to follow the path of cultivation like Zhu Xiao's. There are bumps everywhere, thorns are everywhere, and if you are not careful, you will trip or get hurt. And the road he wants to take, spacious and flat, with clusters of flowers. Lu Zuan compared it for a while, and couldn't help but chuckle. A few days passed in a blink of an eye. During these days, Lu Zuan still lived a simple and fulfilling life. He went to Qianlong Lake twice a day, to feed the giant dragon python, and the rest of the time he cultivated spiritual plants, and raised spiritual beasts in the cave. He input a little spiritual power into the windfalcon egg, to speed up its hatching. In the remaining time, he practiced the small 5-element gong, Yun Tengshu, Liuli bone forging method and other techniques. In the spiritual field, the spiritual seeds of the sword raising good have sprouted, and tender green shoots have grown along the worn-out flying sword. After being absorbed by the sword raising good for a period of time, the already worn-out sword body of the flying sword quietly shattered, and the sword intent inside disappeared. It seems that I have to find a way to get some first grade or even second grade flying swords. It's a pity that the white light ball brought by the spirit firefly grass can't be used to produce flying swords, otherwise it will definitely be enough for the growth of the sword raising good. Lu Zuan sighed and patrolled around the spiritual field. When passing by the grass puppet, he casually stuffed a drop of grass spirit essence into its huge grey grass tumor. Under the flushing of a large amount of grass and wood spirit, the huge head of the grass puppet instantly became green. Lu Zuan continued to check the spiritual plants. In the past few days, a large number of spirit fireflies have entered the fully mature stage. He picked 32 plants, and left 50 plants to condense the spirit seeds. When buying spiritual seeds in Sinner Hall, he noticed that there were no spiritual firefly grass seeds for sale. He wondered if it was too low in grade to be included in the list. Fortunately, he had obtained the method of refining spiritual seeds from Beikeo Tang, so he didn't have to worry about not having spiritual firefly grass seeds in the future. Among the 32 spiritual fireflies, 10 were of good quality, 18 were of superior quality, and 4 were of perfect quality. Lu Zuan picked up the 32 white light balls that appeared one by one. The cultivation reward was about 5 years, which increased Lu Zuan's spiritual power a lot. The rest were basically some first grade elixirs, talismans, and 3 magic experience packs. The 4 white light balls brought by the 4 perfect quality spiritual fireflies produced 3 drops of grass spiritual essence liquid and a recipe experience pack for Pio and Dan. In addition, the remaining 6 tender green tea leaves on the 3 King Mio spiritual teas also entered the fully mature stage. Among them, 3 were of good quality and 3 were of superior quality. The tea leaves were picked, and the 6 white light balls flickered slightly, as if tempting Lu Zuan to click them quickly. Lu Zuan touched it gently, and the ball of light turned into countless light points, and poured into his body. Then, a thought came to his mind. Harvest a piece of King Neolingcha tea, and obtain the 3rd grade elixir, dust reducing pill. A round elixir with a fragrant aroma lay quietly in his palm. Harvest a piece of King Neolingcha tea, and obtain the 3rd grade talisman, The purifying spirit talisman. Right square bracket asterisk. Two white jade-like talismans appeared in Lu Xuan's hands, and the talisman spirit light surged, exuding a holy and pure breath. There are 3 more light balls left by the top grade King Miaoling tea leaves. Lu Xuan stared at the last 3 light balls, and rubbed his hands gently. A thought quickly flashed through his mind. Harvest a piece of King Miaoling tea, and obtain the 2nd grade magic purification spell. A large amount of information about magic poured into his sea of consciousness. The principles of magic, the tricks of casting, the speed of casting. Not bad. The 2nd grade magic experience package is worth practicing this method for a long time. Lu Xuan thought secretly. After thoroughly absorbing all the information, he felt that his understanding of the purification mantra was deeper and clearer, as if he had cast it hundreds of times. Next, Lu Xuan gently touched the next white light ball. The light ball poured into his body, and then a thought flashed through his mind. Harvest a piece of King Miaoling tea, and obtain the 3rd grade skill glass bone forging method part 1. Lu Xuan didn't believe in evil, and didn't bother to digest the large amount of cultivation knowledge in his mind, and hurriedly pointed to the last white light ball. The light ball exploded, and turned into countless light points like a dazzling galaxy, and all of them sank into Lu Xuan's body in an instant. Harvest a piece of King Miaoling tea, and obtain the 3rd grade skill glass bone forging method part 2. A huge amount of information poured into Lu Xuan's sea of consciousness, more than 10 times more than the previous skill. Lu Xuan slowly absorbed and digested it, feeling a lot of emotion in his heart. Finally, the lower part of the foundation building technique has been opened. He originally thought that after the upper part came out, with so many tea leaves, the lower part would come naturally, but he didn't expect that he had to wait until the end to get the lower part of the foundation building stage. Lu Xuan stayed quietly in place for a long time before he absorbed the complex and mysterious foundation building stage glass bone forging method. The cloud stepping lynx quietly appeared in front of him and growled with a 3-point clamp sound. Is there any movement in the egg in the room? Lu Xuan asked in surprise. After he specifically instructed, the cloud stepping lynx usually stayed around the Feng Falcon egg. Now it came here, which means that the Feng Falcon is about to hatch. He hurried into the inner room. On the green giant egg, dense and fine lines appeared at some point, and the fine airflow around it flowed more frequently. With a slight click, the fine lines gradually evolved into fine cracks. The cracks spread rapidly, getting longer and thicker. After a few breaths, the fine airflow around the giant egg poured into the egg at the same time, and the blue giant egg broke into dozens of pieces of different sizes. A wet blue bird appeared. The newly born wind falcon was not small in size, nearly 2 feet long, with sparse light blue hair on its body. Its eyes were slightly closed, and it took all its strength to barely open them. As soon as it opened its eyes, it saw Lu Xuan. Sensing the friendly breath of Lu Xuan, the young wind falcon chirped at him softly, with a childish and crisp voice. Then, as if it came from the memory deep in its blood, the young wind falcon took trembling steps, came to the broken blue eggshell, and swallowed a small piece of eggshell fragments into its stomach. After swallowing, the young wind falcon was obviously stronger, and the speed of swallowing the eggshell fragments also increased. After half a minute, all the fragments were swallowed by the young bird. The young bird has changed a lot compared to when it was just born. Its eyes are bright, its movements are powerful, its belly is bloated under its light blue wings, and it walks in a staggering manner, looking very cute. Chapter 125 Love and Hate. Just as the young bird of the wind falcon was swaying towards Lu Xuan, suddenly, a strong wind blew behind it, and the stepping cloud lynx pounced on it from the side and back of the young bird. The wind falcon sensed the danger, immediately spread its wings, and flapped its wings quickly. Its fat body turned into a green shadow, and landed on Lu Xuan's left shoulder. Chirp, it kept making crisp chirps, as if accusing Lu Xuan of the rude behavior of the stepping cloud lynx. Seeing that its throne was occupied, the stepping cloud lynx could not bear it. With a 9-point intention, it roared, stepped hard on the ground with its thick feet like white clouds, and jumped onto Lu Xuan's right shoulder. Lu Xuan's shoulders sank slightly, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The 2 little ones occupied each side. One had just come out of the eggshell and chirped, and the other had a rough voice, and loved to pinch. Lu Xuan didn't feel any peace at all. My shoulders have taken on a weight that they shouldn't have. He sighed and put the young wind falcon and the stepping cloud lynx on the ground. It behaved well when it was hatching the eggs, guarding quietly, but as soon as the little friend came out, you showed your true colors and actually wanted to kill it. It's still a child. Well, it's just a little bigger. Lu Xuan looked at the young wind falcon, which was more than 2 feet long, and pretended to teach the stepping cloud lynx a lesson. He also knew that the stepping cloud lynx was just teasing the young wind falcon. If it really wanted to kill it, how could it not catch the newly born young wind falcon? However, the response of the young wind falcon was somewhat beyond Lu Xuan's expectations. Whether it was the reaction speed when the stepping cloud lynx pounced on it, or the agility of flying, or the first time to hug his thigh and use the force to fight against the stepping cloud lynx, all of this was quite graceful of its owner. Lu Xuan thought proudly, and then he took out twice as much monster meat strips from the house. Under the eager gaze of the young Feng falcon, Lu Xuan sped up, tore the meat strips into small strips, divided them into 2 piles, and placed them in front of the stepping cloud lynx and the young Feng falcon respectively. It had not been long since the young Feng falcon swallowed the eggshell fragments and ignored its bulging stomach and quickly enjoyed the monster meat strips. Seeing this, the stepping cloud lynx, which had always eaten slowly, quietly sped up. The two seemed to be competing to see who was faster. In a blink of an eye, the 2 small piles of monster meat strips were completely wiped out. This big fat boy, he is going to eat me out of money. Lu Xuan suddenly felt a sense of crisis. Before, only the stepping cloud lynx ate monster meat, and the daily amount required was not much. But now, with the addition of a young wind falcon that needs a lot of monster meat right after birth, the stepping cloud lynx also had an impact on the monster meat. The monster meat was quickly eaten up like a whirlwind. It seems that I have to accumulate a lot of monster meat. In addition, I have to buy some flying swords to meet the growth needs of the sword raising guild. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan decided to visit Bailey Giant King, who entered the sect together and had a good relationship with him. While chatting about the past, he also asked him about relevant matters. After entering the sect, the two did not have much interaction and occasionally met once or twice. Lu Xuan followed the address left by Bailey Giant King and took a spirit crane to a huge mountain. This mountain is much more lively than the mountain where Lu Xuan is. There are caves and courtyards everywhere at the foot of the mountainside, and even the top of the mountain. Lu Xuan stopped in front of an elegant courtyard and shouted inside, "Giant King, are you home? I'm Lu Xuan, coming to see you." Soon, the formation outside the courtyard opened, and Bailey Giant King came out to greet him. His long and narrow eyes narrowed into 2 slits, with an extremely eager smile on his face. "What gust of wind blew you here, Brother Lu? What a rare guest, coming quickly." Bailey Giant King teased as he welcomed Lu Xuan in. "I was thinking about you, wasn't I? So I wanted to come and see you," Lu Xuan said shamelessly. "By the way, I haven't contacted you for a while. How have you been recently?" "Not bad. I learned a lot in the sect," Bailey Giant King replied. "I practice hard every day, listen to the lectures of the foundation building uncle from time to time, and exchange swordsmanship with fellow disciples. In the middle, I also completed a sword seal mission. I went to the outskirts of the Black Abyss with several fellow disciples to hunt several monsters. What about you, Brother Lu? I haven't seen you come to listen to the lectures of the foundation building uncle, and I've never seen you in the daily battles and competitions." "Me? I seldom come out. I study the methods of practice by myself every day. I'm not very interested in fighting or anything like that. Most of my time was spent on cultivating spiritual plants. During this period, I completed 2 sword seal missions. One was to cultivate 2nd grade spiritual plants, and the other was to help raise the giant dragons and pythons in Kyan Lang Lake." Lu Xuan summarized. "I heard that there are many evil spirits in the Black Abyss, and there are many powerful robbery cultivators. Did you encounter any danger when you went there?" "We were just active on the periphery and didn't go deep inside. As for accidents, that's inevitable. 2 brothers were injured because of this, but fortunately it wasn't serious. However, we are disciples of a large sect after all. Whether it's cultivation or treasures, we are not comparable to those casual cultivators. It's not an easy task to kill us." Bailey Giant King's face showed a trace of pride as a sect disciple. The two chatted for a while, and Lu Xuan took the initiative to open the topic. By the way, Giant King, you have a good family background and a wide network of people in the sect. I have something to ask you. I don't know where in the sect I can sell or buy spiritual medicines and monster materials. It's best to have a large amount. Sell or buy monster materials? Bailey Giant King fell into deep thought. It is not allowed to set up a market in the sect, but from time to time there will be activities for fellow disciples to exchange treasures. The organizer is usually a cultivator with great reputation among the inner disciples or outer disciples. The exchange of things often takes the route of treasures. It is difficult to get a large amount of monster materials or spiritual medicines in the sect, unless you, Brother Lu, issue relevant tasks yourself. The best way is to go to Jianmen Town, which is not far from the sect. There are many shops there, and it is very close to the sect, so the disciples in the sect often go there to buy things. Bailey Giant King explained in detail. Lu Xuan nodded slightly. Jianmen Town is indeed very close to Xianjian sect. It is only a few dozen miles away. It can be said to be a contact point between Xianjian sect and the outside world. Moreover, there are a large number of Xianjian sect cultivators gathered in Jianmen Town, so it goes without saying that it is safe. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan decided to go to Jianmen Town and deal with the more than 100 Lingian grass in his hand. As for the dark marrow Ganoderma and 17 pieces of King Miolingcha tea leaves, it depends on the price. In addition, you need to buy some monster meat, a first grade ordinary flying sword, and if there are rare second grade spiritual seeds, you can also consider it. Of course, it would be the best if he could find a high grade unknown spiritual seed. Lu Xuan has always had a strong desire for this kind of spiritual seed. The sword grass, dark marrow Ganoderma, and the phantom smoke fruit he had obtained before were all obtained in this way, which brought him huge profits and made him feel a little greedy. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.